Devastating news for Wales scrum half Thomas Williams. He's been ruled out of the Lions tour due to a hamstring injury. Head coach Andy Farrell says it's a big blow.
Got a slightly worse injury than we first thought, so it's going to be medium to long-termish. So unfortunately, he's got some sad news this morning, and he'll be leaving camp.
Former Lion Will Greenwood told us this could be a sadly defining moment in Williams' career.
Unless he comes back in 2029, for the rest of his life, we'll have a mixed relationship with the British and Irish Lions, because he is one, and everyone will say, was it amazing, was it amazing? And he'll go, yeah, but...
Now, from the Lions in Australia to the Lionesses in Switzerland, their Euro title defence kicks off this week. They beat Jamaica 7-0 in a friendly last night. There was a return for Lauren James after her injury, but Sarina Wiegman is staying coy about her starting lineup.
So this is the first time that she could get minutes, and yeah, then we hope next week we can keep building her, and then going into France. And we also know that there's a lot of competition going on up front, but also in midfield. So we figure out in the last couple of days how we will start.
Are you getting into the Club World Cup yet? Our reporter Ben Jacobs has told us potential semi-finals between Chelsea, Man City, PSG and Real Madrid could build excitement, but he also pointed out
the danger of that, however entertaining, is if it all comes back to UEFA again. UEFA, the big powerhouse in all of this, may say, well, why are we playing all of these games just to again have 4 UEFA teams in the semi-finals, however entertaining that is the world football audience.
After England's under-21s won the Euros, Henry Winter has paid tribute to their manager.
Lee Carsley, with what he's done back-to-back Euros, the way he has done it, the way he's also, just talking to him out in Slovakia, the way he learnt from that experience, going through the furnace of media and public scrutiny with England. I think he learnt from that, and absolutely he will be a contender when Tuchel leaves in the summer.
And Wimbledon is underway out in the sun, so head to talksport.com for plenty of exclusives to read while you eat your strawberries and cream.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White, Simon Jordan, and former Spurs and Newcastle midfielder Jermaine Jenas, and we're live on talkSPORT. So, rematch confirmed. Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn will go again this September. Following the drama of the first fight, did this deserve a second instalment? Meantime, do weather delays bring into question the suitability of America as a summer tournament host? Also today, how much longer will Enzo Maresca be able to peddle the "we're not ready" narrative? England win the under-21 Euros again. Is this the start of an international success story or the end of it? Does tradition hold back tennis? And as he departs Everton, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin still worth a Premier League punt? It's Jim White, Simon Jordan and Jermaine Jenas, and we are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
See, Jermaine, at this stage, mate, after I do the introduction with all that gusto, I have to catch my breath because I'm kind of done. I'm done at my age. That's it.
Oh, we need the energy, though. We need the energy. Jim. That's perfect for me.
Good morning to you, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Great to have you. As for you, 31 degrees. Are you enjoying this heat? I mean, you don't need to go back to your beautiful apartment. I was about to say an apartment, Jermaine. It's anything but that.
I can imagine.
His property in Spain.
Do you know what I've just realised?
Go on.
After all this time, listening to the introduction, you know, the billing of the Colosseum and Confrontation, all that load of old pony, right? That's the guy from The Office, isn't it? It's Finchy from The Office that does that voiceover, isn't it?
Is it really?
It is, isn't it? After all this listening today, it suddenly dawned upon me, I had this epiphany.
It's only taken you, what, 5-6 years to realise that?
4 or 5 years, absolutely.
See, this is what they do in here, Jermaine. You think, oh, they've got some guy from Hollywood who can Jim White, Simon Jordan. But no, he's in a corner on the 17th floor having a cup of tea. A lot to get through this morning. Anyway, how are you coping with the weather? Because I'm struggling at night.
I like it. I was in your neck of the woods yesterday afternoon wandering around the South Bank.
Lovely, isn't it?
Very nice, yeah.
Beautiful. You didn't knock on my door. I was in.
No, I didn't.
I might not have answered, but I was
4 days
in.
a week is quite enough of him.
Quite right. Are you having the weather, Jermaine?
I'm loving it. Yeah,
You're loving it.
I was thinking the other day that if England was consistently like this, I wouldn't probably go away as much in the summer. In the summers,
no, true.
I quite enjoy it here in the summers. There's
It's
a lot
a good
going on.
point.
You've got a lot of events. You've got Wimbledon. You've got the cricket. You've got there's a lot going on, but it's not consistent, is it?
We'd have endless droughts. We'd have no water.
This is a fair point.
None of
this
the
is a
infrastructure.
I remember in the summer years ago in Scotland we had about 3 consecutive days of dry weather, and it was drought warning. 31 degrees later today, having said all that, so we're getting used to it. Here's the thing. Jermaine Jenas and Jim White were at the last fight when these two met, and you wouldn't go. And I'm talking about Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. And they go again on September the 20th, somewhere in London, a venue yet to be confirmed. TBC. Thank you, producer Luke. You loved that first fight, didn't you, Jermaine?
I did, yeah. Why didn't you go, Simon?
For a variety of reasons.
Only because I listened to the show. Obviously, I know you're a huge boxing fan.
Ideologically, I didn't agree with the fight. I thought it was a pup. I thought it was simply about money. And of course, at the end of the day, professional sports is about component parts of money. And I didn't like the whole dog and pony show that was around it. And so I'd said very early doors, I think it's a poor fight. Now, I can be like everybody else, which is ultimately become a sycophant and run off to get a free ticket from Frank already and go and watch something I didn't agree with, or I can have some principles and say, I don't like it, fair play to the boys, we reward mediocrity, people get paid for mediocrity, here's a big bag of money for mediocrity. And I maintain that view. And if people
but the thing was, it was anything but mediocre. But you weren't to know that before it.
Well, it wasn't, from a boxing point of view, what it was a bar fight.
Mate,
and if you like bar fights, that's fantastic. What it was theatre. The media created it, turned it into... I genuinely couldn't care less if Chris Eubank Sr. got out of that car. I spent more than enough time with Chris Eubank Sr. to work out what he is and what he isn't, so I didn't need all that spectacle. I didn't like all the hypocrisy. I don't buy into the nonsense about, oh, he's so weight drained. Well, he's weight drained because he accepted the weight clause so he could get paid £6 million. He's so weight drained because he wanted another £1 million because he didn't want to have a rehydration course, and I can't buy into all that crap. I can't. And it's theatre and it's part of the media spectacle.
How have you been, Jermaine? Are you well, mate?
No, I'm enjoying listening to this.
But you asked me.
And I know.
Here we are again. This is a fight between...
So will you go to this one?
No, not particularly.
Oh, Simon.
I think,
of course you will.
No, listen, I might do, I might not do. And the fight's been had, it's been rehearsed. Is anybody of the belief that anything's going to be any different? Is Conor Benn suddenly going to grow 2 feet and put on 4 stone? Is Chris Eubank going to have lost all the impetus that he had in the first fight? Who knows? But what we've got is 2 fighters that are fighting because of the reputation of their fathers. They've had a barn burner of a fight that people think is wonderful, and beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
How was it for you, mate?
I thought that all the theatre and all the things that you're talking about added to the experience.
You liked it,
I really do. I think that, I think from Conor Benn's point of view, from minute one, he just went at him, and I get what you're saying in terms of it was a bar fight.
I knew he was going to do that.
Yeah, but I think it's what sometimes when you're in those environments, in these stadiums, as you'll know, you are craving blood a bit. You know what I mean? That energy is so high that you're thinking, just go for him. And we watch so many fights where boxers are just skipping around the ring and just like, feeling each other out, that when Conor just flew in there, and actually even then seeing what Chris was able to do with his experience and riding the punches and so on, there was still a lot of beauty in there, I thought.
From round one.
Yeah.
From round one, Simon.
The intensity was there. Of course it was there. Did
he deserve the rematch?
If there hadn't been an intensity in that, then it would have been an absolute sham. Because the one thing that they could and should have had to be able to bring was the intensity. We heard all the background noise. We created this media spectacle, and we sat there and we watched something that people enjoyed. Now, if I didn't enjoy it, that's fine. I'm allowed not to enjoy something or to be part of it, because who cares what I think anyway? If they like it and they want to see it, I look at it and go, I spent a lot of time with Nigel Benn, I spent a lot of time with Chris Eubank Senior. I know which one of the two I prefer, all right, and I know which one of the two is more
But
real.
what does that matter anyway?
And I look at the whole spectacle because I object to the way the media lionises people and demonises them, and there's no in between. You're a hero or you're a zero, and it's crap, and I don't like it.
Well, let me put this to you then: is this now an easier or a harder sell second time around?
Well, you can't. You can only ring out
for the boxing public.
Well, you can only ring out the sentimentality of it once, right? You can't reveal Chris Eubank Jr. I mean, why people are so invested in that? Maybe it's because it's a father-son story. I get that, right? But the fact of the matter is, what can you do again? You can't smack him in the face with an egg again. You can only call him a cheat so many times. So if he's a cheat, why are you fighting him? You're fighting for a big bag of money, so pack that in, right? So the cheat side of things, no integrity in that argument. Neither one of you are fighting for any belts. What are you actually fighting for? The match was decided. It was a convincing win for Chris Eubank Jr. So what you want to do is you want everybody to go back to the well to give you another 10 or 15 million quid. If that's what you want to do as a paying public, fantastic.
But the fact of the matter is, Jermaine, in my view, the two of them deserve to go back to the well and be paid big time because of what they served up first time.
Correct. I think from an athlete's point of view, I think when I look at Conor in particular, I think that
you know him well, don't you?
Well enough to to speak to. I think that he would have learnt a lot from that experience of being in the ring, and you can sit there and kind of say, well, is anything going to be any different? It was tight at points. I think Chris probably those last 3 rounds shown his experience, and probably the weight or whatever it may be is where Conor started then to fall back, and then does Conor then change his tactics for this one? I still think there's a lot of intrigue in what's going to happen. I do believe that it's just as easy a fight to sell. It's just whether we get as good a product as the viewing public, essentially.
What are you looking forward to more? Dubois Usyk 2 or Eubank Ben 2?
Yeah, they're tight. I still think...
How can it be tight? This is the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world between the two best heavyweights in the world, and you've got
But I'm not sure the boxing public think that.
You've got two mediocre, unproven fighters that have never won anything.
Mediocre, though. But you keep saying mediocre.
Everybody in boxing knows they're mediocre. Everybody does. It's only the observers looking and going, well, do you know what? Because of if this wasn't
mediocre equals a detrimental term. They're not like that.
If this wasn't Eubank versus Ben as the headline, if these weren't the names, no one would be opining on this in the same way. It's because of the legacy, the carriage of that.
But here's the thing: it's because of what you said before the first fight, you're kind of locked into that, and it's hard for you to get out of that.
No, not at all.
I think from a boxing point of view, sorry to put in, but I think from a boxing point of view, you are sometimes drawn by the characters more than also almost the ability a lot of the time.
Depends on how you want to view your sports.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, a lot of people will watch Better Biev versus Bivol as a boxing fan and go, I'll watch that all day because that is two of the best versus the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this instance, it's two of the biggest names in British boxing trading off their father's name, built up notoriety because one of them not allegedly, failed drugs test. The other one is a controversial, a real showman in Eubank. And you've got this wonderful mix in the middle that captivates the public's imagination. And that's nothing wrong with that. From my point of view, I look at it and I like to see, and people can say it's envy, it's none of the above. I like to see elite people getting elite rewards because they're elite. And I don't see these two as elite. I see how there can be even a parallel between the 4-belt heavyweight championship of the world, which was once upon a time arguably the greatest honour in sport to be the heavyweight champion of the world, had the two best in class fight in a ring, and compare it with these two.
But I think it's all about the story and what's the most anticipated fight. And this will be hugely anticipated again, because what if Conor loses again? Could be over.
For who? He's a welterweight fighting a super middleweight that's boiling himself down. He can go back down to 147 and get on with his career. He's got nothing to lose. The only thing he can lose is not having his fight. He's taking a big bag of money out of it.
What we don't want to see again is Jake Paul against Cesar Chavez
It's got a
Jr.
public story behind it. Why not?
But that is mediocre, mate. Having said that, come the time, wherever it is in London, and the fight comes along, I reckon you'll be tempted this time to go, because so many people are saying it. I'm saying it. Jermaine's saying it. We were all, Simon, literally on the edge of our seats from the first bell to the last. And I think if you're doing a rematch on the basis of that, it's worth attending. Now, I'm not trying to sell the fight. It's not fault to do with me. But I do think, yes, if it had been mediocre first time around, I would agree with you. But it was far from it. Far from it. And it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again.
Why is there any surprise? I mean, I knew this fight was going to happen again 6 weeks ago. There was never any parallel universe. There is an enormous bag of money. And who was not going to take it?
Sure. I'm going to put it out there this morning, Jermaine. This is what we do, and we will take calls even this early. But Ben against Eubank Jr., again, the rematch. Do the two of them deserve it? Do the boxing public want it, let alone deserve it? Give us a call on that. 03717 223344 81089. Welcome, Jermaine. Welcome. Good morning, everybody. Monday morning. Here we go again. Monday, June the 30th. Are we really through June already? We are. It's Jim White, Simon Jordan and Jermaine Jenas. And we're with you all the way through until 1 o'clock. Of course we are. Courtesy of Selco, it's where the trade goes. You're out there in your numbers and you're calling in. I'm going to get to you. I love that. Even this early, so many calls coming in about Eubank Ben. And it's going again. Eubank Jr. fights Conor Ben again, somewhere in London around September time. Do you want to see it? Should we be seeing it? Jermaine's a fight fan. He, like me, was there first time around. Simon didn't go, but Simon's saying, no, for various reasons, it's not high in his list of priorities. There is one message, not often I agree with Simon, but he's right about Ben and Eubank. Jim and Jermaine have spoken about the theatre and the story of it. Essentially, you're going to watch WWE. I'm not sure about that. I would go into it with an open mind again, Jermaine. Loads of calls come in, I'll get to them. But I go into it, Jermaine, thinking, I honestly don't know what the outcome's going to be.
No, but it's even still, right? Yes, there was a lot of stuff going on the periphery of the actual fight with Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank getting out of the car, senior.
Right.
But once they crossed that line, as we would say in football, once they crossed that white line, that was not WWE. They went at it.
That's true.
When they were in the ring. So, I'm looking at it from what happened on the inside. What happened on the outside was just a big bonus for a night out, essentially, for everybody that was in there, the boxing fans.
Right. Mediocre. Simon used the word mediocre. None of that fight was mediocre.
No. They put everything on. I can see when athletes put everything on the line, in particular boxers, and you could see both of them left it all out there, and that's why they got the respect that they got. Yeah, and because that's all you're asking for.
At least they can do that.
It is, yeah.
In all fairness, we mustn't package things up as wow, we got what we should have got. Well, you paid for that. That's what you should get. Now, I know that in life you don't often get that. People say, "Oh, we played really well in a game." What's the alternative? We played crap then. He should be playing well.
Simon, how many? You've been to many fights, many more than me. Yeah. How many have you been to that didn't live up to the billing and absolutely should have done?
Yeah, there are fights that you can look at and say that, like Jermaine said at the top end of this show, which is people dancing around trying to avoid one another. We just saw it recently with Canelo Alvarez and William Scull trying to survive 12 rounds. Yeah. You know, it's incumbent upon Canelo to deal with him in that respect. But the bottom line is I don't question the integrity of the fight.
Sure.
I question the level of hysteria that we raise around it.
Okay.
Not the quality of the... but first and foremost, Conor Benn cannot compete technically with Chris Eubank. Yeah. So my view is the same outcome will be the same. But if people want to pay for it, fantastic.
Well, this is it. Does the boxing public deserve a second instalment of Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn? We put it out there. Jermaine, the listeners in this show, the callers never let us down. They're out in numbers this morning. Tom, who's a Leeds United fan and Nora, a big fight fan, is through to us. Tom, good morning. Do you want to see this again?
Morning, gents. Look, the first fight was great. It was phenomenal. But the problem is, there was such story to it. There was legacy, there was the fathers, the egg, the ban, everything. It happened, it was great. But I just think doing it again, you know, I think it's a stupid idea. I think Conor Benn right now should be looking at himself going, right, if I get 2 losses, am I ever going to get a world title? No, he probably should go back to doing what he should be good at, get back to his weight limit, go back to where he's comfortable at, and focus on going for a world title.
So that's unusual, Tom. You were having it first time around, but maybe not second time around.
Yeah, I just think the first time around there was so much to it. It had gone on for such a long period of time. I mean, I listen to you guys every single day. And I just,
thank you for that.
Talking about it, it was really, really good. No, I wouldn't listen to anything else. Finest folk on the radio.
Oh, and Tom, you're a lovely man, and I'm glad you've called, mate. To heck about the fight. Talk about us. Tom, thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. What about Mohammed in Cardiff? Are you having it second time around? Good morning, Mohammed.
No, good morning, lads. I completely agree with Simon and the caller that just called. I just think the fight is being hyped up to something that it shouldn't be. Conor Benn should go back to his division because the belts are available now because Gerard Boots Ennis has moved up to 154, and Chris Eubank is basically a cash-out fight. Chris Eubank knows he can't win a world title, so he knows this is the best financial fight that he can go for. So it's basically a cash-out fight, and we've already seen it. There's no storyline to it now. If there was world titles on the line, I could understand, but there's absolutely nothing apart from a big pot of money at the bottom of the road, basically.
So you won't be watching it?
I don't think I'll be watching it because I've seen it already. It's probably going to be the same outcome. So, Dubois face Usyk. Now that's a proper fight. You see, that's a fight that we should be hyping up. But 2 guys that are living off their daddy's name, I don't think I'm going to be watching it again.
Okay, Mohammed, fair enough. Very honest. This is where, again, I tell you what, this guy will not let us down. Mick, who's a big Sheffield Wednesday fan and a fight fan. Mick, good morning. The show can carry on now that you're on. What do you want to say, mate?
Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm sick of this show because you make me agree with Simon Jordan all the time. Right? So,
go on, agree with him, Mick. But why do you agree with him?
I'm doing. I mean, I didn't watch the first fight. Again, I were along with Simon on that one. I'm not interested. Why that were a top of the bill fight, I'll never know. There's a saying in boxing about a good big un will always beat a good little un. That just emphasises the mediocre nature, to use Simon's word, of Chris Eubank Jr. for not getting rid of him early.
Oh.
And I'll not be watching a second fight. I've no interest in it.
Fair enough.
To speak about this fight in the same sentence as Dubois versus Usyk is a disgrace from a show that pushes boxing as much as you do. And it's just ridiculous. You've got the elite and the, not so elite, shall we say.
How do you think you'll feel a couple of days out from the next one when they go again, Mick? Do you think your attitude might have changed? Might you get caught up in it all?
No, it didn't change last time. Why would it next time?
I get a feeling when Mick makes a decision, Mick sticks to that decision, Simon.
Yeah, you're trying your very level best there to rinse something out, and you'll get nowhere. You're going to find someone that agrees with you in a minute.
I'm not so sure we will. Jermaine, if you and I are there, mate, fine. I mean,
look, they're going to pack
honestly,
out a
I won't buy
again.
into it.
They will pack out a stadium again. I think one of the probably the biggest and better things with these two guys is they know how to sell a fight, and I think a new narrative will be created. It's as simple as that.
It will.
So the interest will grow, and they'll pack out whatever stadium it's going to be in London again. And like I said, they crossed that line. There's still some hatred between these two. There's respect now, more respect, I would say, but they still don't like each other.
Yeah, of course. And I reckon, Simon, what we want to know is, can Conor turn it round? Can he reverse?
Well, that's the intrigue. That's the narrative that's got to be sold.
Yeah.
Because if it can't be sold, then people's engagement will be less. Because if you believe that Conor is going to go into it, it's going to be rinse and repeat, then you're just watching something that doesn't have the same intrigue unless someone's going to script write and curate a wonderful set of narratives to be able to turn us back into the spectacle of Disneyfication that they were able to do in the first one.
Yeah.
With Chris smashing him in the face with an egg, all that went with that, with whether his father's going to come, whether his father's not going to come, Turkey Al-Sheikh's involvement, the controversy between the promoters. You've got the situation with Boxer now coming off Sky, so you've got that as a backdrop in terms of some intrigue about what can land, where, when, and why. But you'll have the scriptwriters at Hollywood Central working out the narrative and feeding the lines to the two fighters to go off there and create it because they want to sell it. It's P.T. Barnum. Roll up, let's go.
I've got to say, Paul, I wasn't going to read it, but I'll read it. The hypocrisy coming from Simon is killing me this morning. He's the first one to call out fighters who talk before fights and then don't back it up. He did it with Anthony Yarde and many others. Simon was desperate for the fight to be a washout so he could sit there all smug afterwards. But I'm afraid the two fighters on the night proved him wrong.
I don't think I've ever called Anthony Yarde out. I'm a big admirer of Anthony Yarde. The only thing I've called him out for is Tundi's absolute nonsense about making fights with Josh Boazzi, because I know the other side of the argument because I was in the discussions.
I'll get him yet, Jermaine. I'll get. There's plenty of time. 2.5 hours to go. We will talk many things this morning, of course, not least the Club World Cup. Are you into it, mate, before we hit the break?
Not massively, no. We'll have a chat about it, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know, it's just from a footballer's point of view, they must be just mentally drained right now and going into this and then following into a pre-season, and it's just a bit, as a fan, I'm a bit... Yeah, I need a break from football as a fan, if I'm honest with you. So,
sure thing.
I can't really get on board.
We're going to touch on that in a second. I was messaging you last night, Simon, while watching Flamengo against Bayern Munich.
Bayern, yeah, watch some of that.
While trying to read the proof of Sir David Murray's book, of course, about Rangers, his time at Rangers, and of course,
he's a character.
Selling up to Craig White, etc., etc. He is indeed a character. There is a lot to him, much to be admired, much to be questioned. And Sir David Murray will be joining us on the show tomorrow. In the meantime, it's Simon, myself and Jermaine, and we are live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes at 10:30.
Chelsea aren't wasting any time splashing their Club World Cup money. £60 million for João Pedro, anyone? Well, Alan Pardew thinks the Brighton forward is worth the money.
And
great
contract
signing
ready for the FIFA Club World Cup.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of these. So they've obviously got it in time, and wow, I think that's a first-class player and fit well with all those young players around him.
Meanwhile, Conor Benn has vowed to learn the lessons from his loss to Chris Eubank Jr. earlier this year after their rematch was confirmed. talkSPORT's boxing expert Gareth A. Davies reckons they'll fight in the same weight division as last time out.
That's almost what made the first fight, that they made Eubank cut to middleweight, and he's in his mid-30s, and they're not going to let him fight Conor Benn at super middleweight. Eddie Hearn wouldn't allow that because he'll be too big.
Elsewhere, a 7-0 win over Jamaica for the Lionesses as they prepare to head to Switzerland. Their Euros title defence kicks off this week, but Serena Wiegmann is keeping level-headed before the tournament.
We have a good team and we have many options in the team, and there's a big competition going on for positions, and that I, together with my technical staff, we have decisions to make.
And head coach Andy Farrell has confirmed Wales scrum half Thomas Williams has been ruled out of the Lions tour. He picked up a hamstring injury against Western Force on Saturday. There's more on all those stories at talksport.com.
FIFA Club World Cup Roundup on talkSPORT, presented by DAZN. Watch every game of the FIFA Club World Cup live and for free on DAZN. Sign up now at DAZN.com.
So it's that time, and we shall look at the Club World Cup, all thanks to DAZN. I spoke about it briefly going into the last break, talking about Flamengo against, I always want to say Tottenham when I think of Harry Kane. I just want to say Tottenham, but he's gone, Jermaine, as have you. And you're with us this morning, Jermaine Jenas in studio with Simon and myself. First off, Jermaine, is it in any way growing on you a bit? I found at the start, I was saying to Simon, I cannot see myself looking at any of these games, and now I'm caught up in it, thoroughly caught up in it.
I think that the more you get to the latter stages of any tournament, you start to take a little bit more interest anyway. I just think from a player's point of view, some of the early games that I was watching, they just didn't look like they wanted to be there a lot of the time. Look, there are huge benefits financially to a lot of these clubs to be at the tournament and to win the tournament, obviously. But yeah, you have to. I'm always going to be, from a player's perspective, looking at kind of like the player welfare side of things, and I haven't massively enjoyed it, if I'm totally honest with you. It's been okay.
So from the player welfare point of view, where do you stand in it? If you were a player there, would you have been dragged kicking and screaming to play in it?
Well, no, I'm gonna play. That's my job. That's what I get paid to do.
Right,
so I'm going to do it. But then when I'm on that pitch and the heat is the way it is and the pitches are the way they are, then you just naturally, tend to look after yourself a little bit as a player in a certain situation. It's like pre-season friendlies. You use them to, to build yourself into the season. So I might get to 80 minutes in a game and I will look at a run that I need to make. I might be slightly tight in my hamstrings and calves, and I might go, you know what, I'm just going to sit in here and, play from that midfield position rather than make that run because something might go. I would say that in pre-season.
Right.
In season, I'm gone. No matter what, if there's a chance to score a goal, I'm gone. And this just feels a little bit pre-season-y to me, where people are thinking, Yeah, I'll look after myself because I would like to have more than a week off after this, because pre-season's right around the corner.
You see, when we spoke to Danny Murphy last week, he went really strongly on his standing, his view of it from an ex-player's perspective. This was Murphy.
Watching games with half-empty stadiums is tedious anyway. It's boiling hot. The tempo's not great, apart from the South American teams who are A, used to playing in it, and B, in the middle of their season. So that in itself makes it somewhat ridiculous. You've got teams playing who are in the middle of the season. You've got groups of players from Europe who are having a bit of a jolly up because they've got to be there, don't really want to be there.
If Liverpool were in it, you'd be watching it.
Only if the new players were playing, to have a look at them. But no, I've got no interest. I don't think the players who are there from Europe are particularly... I mean, Atletico Madrid going out, they didn't look too bothered, did they? I mean, for me, it's not drawn me in at all. And
so you give the tournament no value?
No.
What were you saying to me during that?
But he hasn't even watched it. By his own admission, he said he hasn't watched it, so I don't know how he knows how the Atletico Madrid players detail. No, ideologically, I agree with a lot of what's said. You know, the heat is distressing, the pitches aren't great, but the principle of the tournament was objected to before everyone kicked a ball. So the reality of it is that, of course, it's a land grab. We all know it's a land grab for economics. But why? Why is it a land grab for economics? We know what it is for FIFA. He's a snivelling little sycophant that's cuddled up to Donald Trump and wants to politically advance himself, Gianni Infantino. We know all that, right? But from a football point of view, I mean, you've got some teams out there that are worth watching.
Yeah.
I mean, Man City smashing Juventus 5-2 is not a stroll in the park. You know, I watched the game last night. Bayern Munich weren't on the beach. They were pressing and they played hard in that game, and they played with tempo. Yeah, we know it's a challenge. We went to the World Cup a couple of years ago. Did nobody want to watch the game when England beat Iran 6-0? That was crap too. Iran were crap. You get bad teams in tournaments.
England USA was a shocker.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part and parcel of a tournament. But it's about orthodoxies. You've got a bias in your mind. I don't want to watch it. Why don't you want to watch it? Because we spent the last 6 months peeing all over this tournament for a variety of different reasons. Bought into the idea that the players don't like it. Well, with due respect to the players, if all the money in the room wasn't going out the door to the players and to the managers and to the transfer fees, then maybe there'd be a bigger argument as to why these tournaments don't need to be played. And if they were still being played, then you can say to these owners, pack it in. You're just profiteering. But we all know damn well that whoever gets this 100 million quid is going to go straight out in the marketplace and spend it on the next raft of players and either transfer fees or salaries.
Yeah.
So unless you square
Do
that
you accept
circle,
that, Jermaine?
To an extent.
Ultimately, the winner's cheque of 100 million will end up one way or t'other in the players' pockets.
Well, yeah, and obviously with the PSL ruling that's all happening right now, that 100 million is huge to some of these football clubs. Now, the only thing I would say on the element of owners and players and who's benefiting from these pots of money, I mean the owners benefit also, no, down the line.
in the longer game, yeah. If you are fortunate enough, you tell me, besides Chelsea, how many football clubs, and maybe Man United because of the gearing that the Glazers have done, has been a wonderful coup and revelation for the owners? Mike Ashley got his money back at your old club, Newcastle.
Yeah.
If Daniel Levy sells Tottenham, he'll make fortunes. But when they sell it, in the meantime, between then and then, the predominant beneficiaries out of this gold rush, that is gold in them hills that started in 1992 and has ended up in 2025 with the FIFA World Club Championship, has been players, agents and managers. It's undeniable. You guys were earning £70,000 a year 33 years ago. You're now earning £70,000 a week.
And you get to the final, Jermaine, with 100 million at stake. Tight hamstring. You bet you'll run for that ball. There's suddenly
I think you'd be surprised. No, look, any final you're going to play in, you're going to want to win. It won't be because of money. The players want to win that game.
So this thing is worth winning, right? In spite of what Danny says.
You get to any latter stages of any tournament, and something kicks in innately that we've come this far, and I want to win this tournament.
Is Jurgen Klopp talking nonsense? He's claimed this thing is the worst idea ever implemented in football because of serious fears over player welfare.
I don't think he's talking nonsense. No, I think that there is a concern, because we can all sit here and talk about, this £100 million that, I don't know, say Chelsea win the £100 million. What about if someone, I really hope this don't happen, what about if Cole Palmer has a serious injury off the back of overplaying him for this summer and then obviously straight into the next season? Was it worth the £100 million quid that you had?
Those are the risk and rewards. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Jurgen Klopp, this is the same, I'm a huge admirer of, same Jurgen Klopp sat in a room saying, this idea that we can compete with the other clubs is for the birds now, because Manchester City, we know how they operate. They've got more money than everyone else put together. So so hang on, Jurgen. So there's now an opportunity, which you're not featuring in this because you're neither managing or at Liverpool anymore, for more revenue to be generated for other clubs. And now you're not happy with that either. There is a cause and effect to everything. Of course, we've got to look at scheduling. No one would deny it. When we sit in this studio listening to Martin barking at the moon for endlessly about player welfare and schedules, and then having no solution to it. What is the solution? If you want to tell people what the solution is to the economic travails of football, alongside the demands of the players, alongside the scheduling, by all means, write it down. But what you want to do is tell people what you don't want to do. And we've established in the psyche of everybody, including you, that this tournament is worthless. If we'd have spent the last 7 months saying this is a wonderful tournament, one of the players, I listened to the interviews yesterday, and all the players have been given the same question. The Man City players, what about this tournament? It's dreadful, isn't it? Dreadful. And all the players are going to buy, because they're going to buy into it. Yeah, it's not that great. Yeah, well, it's difficult. We've got to do. You keep telling people that it's difficult, they'll believe it's difficult in the end.
I get that, definitely.
And you, looking back in your career, Jermaine, you were hit with injury. You would have wished to have played more games. Here are a few more games, and you would have. I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
Looking back in it, if you'd had this opportunity, you would have loved that on your CV somewhere. Oh, yeah, remember that in the US back in 2025? Yeah, we played in that Club World Cup, got to the semi-final.
Yeah, I think so. I think all of these experiences as footballers, when they're new, you want to experience them, and I think there'll be a group of players now that are at home that are probably thinking, I'm glad I'm not going through that right now. But in about 4 or 5 years' time, when this tournament becomes much more established, then you're going to want it on your CV. It's brand new, and we don't know exactly what it is right now.
So why don't we laud and applaud it rather than revere it and diminish it? But I've sat in this studio with people like Souness that played 60, 70 games a season, right, on pitches that were nowhere near the quality, right? Because you're on the cusp of the changeover between one generation of football and another, right? So you've had best of both worlds, right? So you guys seem to come from a generation that spends more time complaining about what you've got rather than pinching yourself for the opportunities that you have. Souness sits in a studio regularly going, I played 60, 70 games, I got kicked up the backside dawn till dusk by players that could put their foot in, but today's players are insulated from, without medical support, without the nutrition, and all I hear now is players complaining about player welfare.
I don't think
the culture of players changed and the money's changed it.
Probably, he was your manager.
He was my manager at Newcastle. Yeah, my era don't complain about our era in terms of the amount of games that we had to play during the times we were playing.
But you heard Rodri at the beginning of the season saying, right, I think about going on strike. I mean, what?
I think that was after he heard about the FIFA Club World Cup, though, essentially, because I think there are a bunch of players that are thinking, how many more games can we play? Because you have to remember as well.
And you guys always try that trope out as well. It's a short career. So if it's a short career, why don't you make hay while the sun shines?
Because it just gets shorter if you play more. That's why you need your gaps.
But you don't want to be rotated either, do you? If you're rotated, I'm going to want to be rotated. I want to play every game.
People think that the breaks that you need are for your body. Yeah, we're fit, we're athletes, we're trained to do what we do every day. It's much more mental than it is physical. And you need those moments to be able to switch off, get in tune with your family, to reconnect just with normal life, because you are so concentrated day in, day out, especially if you're living in the world of someone like Rodri, where it is like top of the league, semi-finals, Champions League, League Cup. You're constantly at this heightened phase internationally everywhere that you just need a moment of peace in your mind to be able to go again. Your body is ready to go.
Nobody ever mentions broadcasting welfare, do they? I mean, we are stretched to the limit, are we not? Incidentally, Jermaine, this is one of the few tournaments when there's a bit of thunder and lightning. Stop everything, so the players get their feet up. We'll talk about the weather next in a second, and there's some news coming out of Crystal Palace of interest. Stay with us. It's Jim White, Simon Jordan, Jermaine Jenas, live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
FIFA Club World Cup Roundup on talkSPORT, presented by DAZN. Sign up now at DAZN.com to watch every game live and for free.
lot to get through. It's never dull, I'll tell you that. A bit of breaking news on Crystal Palace. For those who don't know, Crystal Palace, of course, won the FA Cup, and their fans were delighted about that. Won it and won it well. But of course, then, thereafter, the spotlight very much centred on John Textor, who has a massive part to play in matters Crystal Palace. And the same John Textor, who is the owner of Olympique Lyon in French Ligue 1. Now, of course, that called into question multi-club ownership ruling. And now Crystal Palace find themselves in the middle of a tug-of-war between Textor, between Lyon, between the Europa League, and, of course, with UEFA overseeing the whole thing. And there was a very strong threat that UEFA might use their power to throw Crystal Palace out of the Europa League next season, the competition that they had qualified for on merit by winning the FA Cup. Now John Textor has sold his shares in Crystal Palace, but it's not over yet, because Simon, we hear in the last few moments, and Textor's somebody I know you've been in touch with, UEFA are now saying they postponed their decision on Crystal Palace's multi-club ownership issue until the outcome of Lyon's appeal against relegation to the French second division.
It's curious to which end. So ultimately what the outcome has to be, that Lyon have to be relegated in order for Crystal Palace to stay in. Is that what the inference we're taking from this? Or is that a bit opaque? We don't really know.
No, that is the reading of the situation.
So
you're right.
The situation is that John Textor, who emphatically believes he'll overcome the challenge of getting Lyon to stay in Ligue 1 because they doesn't believe there's any grounds for their opposite.
The news I'm getting here, and I don't know what this will mean to Crystal Palace fans listening this morning, because they're in tenterhooks quite rightly, and they are in the middle of something that's none of their doing. Lyon are appealing against the decision to relegate them, but should they fail with that appeal, they've agreed to relinquish their Europa League spot. In other words, if they stay in Ligue 2 next season,
well, that's an interesting conundrum.
Palace are in the Europa
League. That's an
League.
Interesting conundrum for John, isn't it? Because he's still the majority shareholder in Lyon, and given the fact he's sold his shares in Crystal Palace and has no further interest in it, and has his own views on that particular situation, you would think that his main focus would be Lyon, wouldn't you?
Yeah. We're hearing this morning
his position is protected.
He has relinquished, quote, leadership roles at Lyon this morning.
Oh, I'm sure he has, in the same way that Marinakis relinquished leadership roles at Nottingham Forest. But at the end of the day, when the cheques get written, they'll be written by Marinakis, won't they? Because nobody else has got any bleeding money at Nottingham Forest.
What's your hunch in this?
I mean, I don't like the way that this is being conducted. And I've never liked the way it's being conducted. I think it's mean-spirited, but the rules are the rules. Now, the rules were changed last year to be able to do the timings of these silly little blind trusts that are really putting people's shares into different positions to have them come back in a year's time. Nobody doesn't think that Jim Ratcliffe still doesn't own Nice, do they? Right, and he put his shares in blind trust so that Nice and Man United could play in the same tournament. It's silly. You either want multi-club ownership and you facilitate it, or you don't. Now, the situation, as I maintain, I don't care who doesn't like it. Right. If Textor had bought 43% of Palace from those shareholders that took the money and put it in their pockets, it was their job to sort out any problems. If Steve Parish runs Crystal Palace, and everyone knows I don't like him, so there's no big secret here, but the fact of the matter is, if Steve Parish is running the football club and makes the big song and dance about the reality of he's running it, then surely he should have said to Textor back in March, there might be a problem coming down the road here, we need to put your shares in blind trust. And none of this would have happened. Now, whether Textor's a great owner or a bad owner, I don't know. The guy's got hundreds of millions of pounds, owns various football clubs, and they all seem to be having a difficult time right now. And the common denominator seems to be him. So you have to look at that. But UEFA, I don't think, are acting in the best interests of the game. I think it's outrageous. Crystal Palace have qualified.
Can you move those shares at any stage then?
Well, you can do what you want with your own shares if you want to, and structure them in such a way. And the ridiculous charade is that if you put them into what's called a blind trust, which basically suggests that you have no control over those shares, then ultimately you don't have decisive influence over more than one football club. So Marinakis did it with Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
But we all know that the only money behind Nottingham Forest is Marinakis. So if Nottingham Forest wanted some money, who are they going to get it from? Marinakis. Oh, but he's got his shares in a blind trust. That means he hasn't got decisive influence. It's silly.
Yeah. It does seem hugely unfair, not only on the Palace players, Jermaine, but also on the Palace fans who turned up in numbers at Wembley and helped play their part in seeing the club over the line by winning the FA Cup. The short and the tall of it here is, if Lyon stay relegated, and in other words, if Lyon lose their appeal,
Palace will be in Europe.
Palace will be in the Europa League.
Yeah.
The big worry here is, if for whatever reason they win their appeal, stay in Ligue 1, they'll play in the Europa League, And Palace will be punished.
So we assume, but at this moment in time, if Olympic Lyon gets...
That's how it's developing.
Yeah, but what UEFA are trying to avoid making a decision. Right. So if Lyon get relegated by their own league, and then Lyon voluntarily step out of the Europa League, UEFA haven't got a decision to make. Right, Palace will be back in and no one can contest it. If they aren't, then you'll see the cat amongst the pigeons, because if Lyon say, we've stayed in Liga and we want our position, and Palace say, hang on, he isn't a shareholder anymore, then UEFA are going to get their feet put to the fire to make a decision that someone's going to sue over.
Right.
And so UEFA are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the situation to resolve itself by someone else's hands.
If you're a Palace player, Jermaine, and the dust settles a bit in your FA Cup final win, a few days later, are you thinking, we're in the Europa League next season? How good is this?
I honestly
and now,
don't...
while those Palace players are on holiday at the moment, they're thinking, we might not be.
Yeah, I honestly think the Europa League position is the last thing on their minds once they've won that FA Cup. You know, the FA Cup is all they're caring about. And then down the line, it's like, okay, I think it's more of an ownership thing, if I'm honest with you. I think from an ownership point of view, from the scouting point of view, from bringing in the recruitment side of things, the minute you go into Europe, have to bolster your squad. It's as simple as that. And that's not just squad, it's the staff, it's everything has to be bolstered, because you're now dealing with an extra 15 plus games.
So is it not true then? I mean, I know I'm stepping up a competition, but we're regularly told that players consider signing for football clubs if they're in the Champions League, because it presents an opportunity. The Europa League is the next tier down in European football, so in a consideration is being made about the value of it, you're saying it's not valuable.
No, I meant, what I'm trying to say is that the players internally, I'm not sure they would have gone home after winning the FA Cup or even this summer and gone, we're playing in the Europa League.
I get that.
I didn't mean it. I meant what in terms of the decision in terms of what needs to happen with Crystal Palace now they're in Europe is much more of an ownership issue rather than the players.
I reckon to me, such and something, Sammy, Oliver Glasner is knocking on Parish's door.
Yeah, he's got a plan.
Saying, I've got a plan here, and I wanted to know about recruitment as we're almost into July.
He's going to do that anyway, isn't he? I mean, let's be fair. I mean, look, Glasner last year probably does, that he probably wasn't supported as much as he wants. This time round, with his currency, he would not be banging on the door. He'd be kicking the door down, saying, I want this because I think we can have a tilt at the Europa League. I think we can have a tilt at the Premier League. Yeah. And, and if I don't get given that kind of support, then I'm not going to be here. Now, the problem for Palace, and this is not mean-spirited for me to say, the players that are going to be really focused on what Europa League could probably mean to them is probably the players that are going to be bloody sold this summer. You know, whether it be Eberechi Eze, that's going to be plucked out by one of the legacy football clubs, whether it be Mark Guehi, who's going to be plucked out by another one. They're not going to have to worry about the Europa League because they're probably going to go to Champions League football clubs. Yeah. Even the boy Muniz, the wing-back, is probably going to be subject to Palace having to fight to keep him.
It's still a stronger argument you can have if you're Glasner, though, that we are playing in a European competition. You've earned this, so stick around for this journey. And also, on top of that, players like Wharton, Eze, all these players, yes, they could leave and go to these clubs. So say Eze went to Arsenal, he went to Tottenham, wherever he may go. There's not a guarantee he's going to play week in, week out. And there's a World Cup at the end of the year. These guys need to be playing in Europe.
If you were in Eze, Susan, I don't want either of these players sold. But I'm a big boy and I realise that if you've got a Liverpool knocking on the door and Arsenal, it's a head turner. If you was an Eze situation where you're a big fish in a smaller pond, and the risk profile is I can go to Arsenal, you'd back yourself, wouldn't you?
100%, yeah. 100%.
So the players' mentality is, I'll go for the bigger club, wouldn't they?
Of course, yeah. It's Champions League, it's Arsenal, you're going to go. It's as simple as that. But it is a risk. It is a risk. You know, is he going to take Martin Ødegaard out of the team on a regular basis? Is he going to take Saka out? And where he's... There's so much more competition going into a major tournament.
Jermaine, as we're about to hit 11 o'clock, on Eberechi Eze, specifically, if it is down to it's Arsenal or it's Tottenham, if you're him, what one?
Tottenham, of it? No. With Eze, no, I honestly would look at it.
He's got a decision to make.
No, he has, definitely. I think the project at Arsenal is clearly they need to win a title, and they have got a better chance of winning a title than Tottenham right now. I think at Tottenham, what we would be getting told is the fact that he probably is more likely to be more of a leadership type position at that club, where he's going to be playing week in, week out, and he's got the Champions League. I know Arsenal have as well, but I think, you know, if he had to pick one, I wouldn't be surprised if he picked Arsenal.
Sure. As if we haven't traumatised the Palace fans enough, Eberechi Eze is still your player, we emphasise. But our reading of this situation with John Texer in the middle of it, and Lyon and Palace involved, of course, with the Europa League, our reading of it is if Lyon stay relegated and don't win their appeal, Palace will be in the Europa League. But we'll keep across it for you. It is 11 o'clock.
Devastating news for Wales scrum half Thomas Williams. He's been ruled out of the Lions tour due to a hamstring injury. Head coach Andy Farrell says it's a big blow.
Got a slightly worse injury than we first thought, so it's going to be medium to long-termish. So unfortunately, he's got some sad news this morning, and he'll be leaving camp.
Former Lion Will Greenwood told us this could be a sadly defining moment in Williams' career.
Unless he comes back in 2029, for the rest of his life, we'll have a mixed relationship with the British and Irish Lions, because he is one, and everyone will say, was it amazing? Was it amazing? And he'll go, yeah, but...
Now, from the Lions in Australia to the Lionesses in Switzerland, their Euro title defence kicks off this week. They beat Jamaica 7-0 in a friendly last night. There was a return for Lauren James after her injury, but Sarina Wiegman is staying coy about her starting lineup.
So this is the first time that she could get minutes, and yeah, then we hope next week we can keep building her, and then going into France. And we also know that there's a lot of competition going on up front, but also in midfield. So we'll figure out in the last couple of days how we will start.
Are you getting into the Club World Cup yet? Our reporter Ben Jacobs has told us potential semi-finals between Chelsea, Man City, PSG and Real Madrid could build excitement, but he also pointed out
the danger of that, however entertaining, is if it all comes back to UEFA again, UEFA, the big powerhouse in all of this, may say, well, why are we playing all of these games just to again have 4 UEFA teams in the semi-finals, however entertaining that is the world football audience.
After England's under-21s won the Euros, Henry Winter has paid tribute to their manager.
Lee Carsley, with what he's done back-to-back Euros, the way he has done it, the way he's also, just talking to him out in Slovakia, the way he learnt from that experience, going through the furnace of media and public scrutiny with England. I think he learnt from that, and absolutely he will be a contender when Tuchel leaves in the summer.
And Wimbledon is underway out in the sun, so head to talksport.com for plenty of exclusives to read while you eat your strawberries and cream.
Good morning, everybody. Just gone at 11 o'clock this Monday morning as we race through the month of June. It's Jim White, it's Simon Jordan, and it's former Tottenham and Newcastle midfielder Jermaine Jenas. And we're all live on talkSPORT. We're streaming live, of course, on YouTube and your smart TV. You can watch this show as well as listen to it. And many of you are doing exactly that. Wimbledon gets underway. Jermaine is a fan of the tennis at Wimbledon, has been there, as have I. Mr. Jordan, of course, has been there, no doubt, on many occasions. We'll get to that. In the meantime, we'll get to this.
Get in the bin! On talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. No ifs, no buts. If you smoke, bin your butts.
Did he just say if you smoke, bin your butts?
Bin your butts, yeah.
You used to smoke. Did you used to bin your butts?
I smoke cigars.
Oh, right. Same question. Did you bin those cigar butts?
My housekeeper do.
Oh, I asked for that, Jermaine. You ever smoked, mate?
No.
Silly question. No.
What, smoked?
Yeah.
I have done, yeah.
Really?
Well, since retirement, I've smoked, yeah, shisha or
20
something. Yeah,
20 a day, man.
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
We're not robots, Jim. You know, we're human beings.
This is true. This is true. This is a new feature with Keep Britain Tidy. We will look at some issue, an item, a talking point, and basically we shall decide whether, as we would do with a cigarette butt or litter of any sort, put it in the bin or avoid putting it in the bin. And the topic we're going to get into, and Jermaine, I think speaking to you pre the show, you're as confused about this as I am, is the weather breaks, the enforced weather breaks at this Club World Cup. Enzo Maresca has been speaking about it because Chelsea were impacted at the weekend and nobody really saw it coming. All of a sudden, there was a weather warning. Need to stop the game. Players go inside, supporters get out the way because the weather might turn, and there's thunder and lightning in the area. And that delay ended up being something like 86 minutes. Am I right? It was 86 minutes long. And on the 86th minute, they decided whether or not they were going to come back out, whether the game was going to be suspended or not. Anyway, suffice to say, Enzo Maresca got his knickers in a twist about it.
85 minutes, we were in control of the game. We didn't concede nothing. We created chances enough to win the game. And then after the break, the game changed completely. I think for me personally, it's not football. It's already 7, 8, 9 games that they suspended here. I think it's a joke, to be honest. It's not football. It's not for us. You cannot be inside because you don't know what you have to say. It's completely, for me, it's completely something new, but I struggle to understand. I can understand that for security reason, you have to suspend the game, but if you suspend the 7, 8 games, that means that probably is not the right place to do this competition. Guys, please don't misunderstanding me. I said it's a fantastic competition. It's Club World Cup. It's top. All the best clubs, they are here. And we are happy to be in the first 8. We are happy to win all these kind of things. But something happened. 6, 7 games suspended. Probably the one that they decide, they need a reason, because it's not normal to suspend a game. In a World Cup, how many games they suspended? 0 probably. In European, how many games? 0. We are here 2 weeks, they already suspended 6, 7 games. There is some problem for me personally, but I'm talking as a manager.
Okay, let's just go over it then. The fact of the matter is that FIFA protocol is a minimum 30-minute delay due to lightning. Every new lightning strike within a 10-mile radius resets the clock. The game can't start again until 30 continuous minutes pass without any lightning. So when the match eventually got underway, Benfica scored with a penalty in the 95th minute, taking it into extra time. Maresca wasn't happy about that. Of course he wasn't. Chelsea, though, eventually ran out 3-1 winners with 2 goals in extra time, so it ended well for them. But this match was the 6th to be suspended by seasonal summer thunderstorms. The big question is, Jermaine Simon, obviously, this is where the World Cup's going to be next summer.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a challenge, isn't it? I mean,
it's a challenge. What do you think of what Maresca would say?
Obviously, the well-known meteorologist Enzo Maresca can obviously tell us how these things work. But we had a game in the Euros. We had Germany versus Denmark that had thunder and lightning. The players had to go off during the course of that. So we have seen this. There is form for this sort of stuff, but of course that doesn't qualify because no one vilified the European Championships. They're only vilifying the Club World Championship. I mean, he has a point. It's not ideal. Right, we've got it. But you're there now. So I don't see the point of this consistent, creating of negative outcomes. So then he has to go back and row back. And I'm pleased to be here. Well, it sounds like it. The fact is, it's not ideal. And there is a question about the whole validity. And part of the thing that I would agree with is why was it played in America in the first place?
Right.
Why did we need? If we were going to have a FIFA World Club Championship, in the fact that we really didn't need one, it's a land grab. It shouldn't be there in the first place to some extent, but it is. Right. Why was it done in America so that even more resistance can be put up? And why was it done in a part of America that we know has challenges? I mean, I was out in Miami this time last year. It was absolutely
baking,
ridiculously hot. It wasn't, there wasn't storms and thunder and lightning, but it was intense heat.
But was it not like a bit of a trial run that they're running here?
But if you wanted to do a trial, wouldn't you do it in the best situation that you possibly could, so you don't have to listen to all this crap? You don't have to listen to, we're playing in hot weather, we're playing in storms, and take all that out of the consideration, drop it into the European framework, and you'd have had none of this.
No, yeah.
A different dynamic. People still be complaining about player welfare, but they'd have less strings to pull out.
I mean, 4.5 hours, Jermaine, they're sitting there, then they're back on. Can players just turn it on again?
No, I think it gives a distinctive advantage to the team that's losing, if I'm totally honest with you. I think the team that comes out, what was it? It was about 85th minute, I think it was, when they got taken in. Chelsea were 1-0 up and they were cruising, to be honest with you. I think this is probably one of the games I did watch. And I think from Benfica's point of view, it's a 5-minute, like, throw everything at it. You're fully rested as well at this particular point. You know, you can throw everything at it. You can tactically talk about different things. I mean, it's pretty amazing that we're talking more about the weather than the shocking decision the referee gave to give a penalty in the first place anyway, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because that was the bigger issue for me.
Benfica could reset, is what you're saying.
They could reset. The coach can, you know, do what he needs to do. So maybe with these things, there needs to be like a time situation where if it gets to, I don't know, like 80 minutes and there is a weather delay, then...
What do you do? Restart to start the game again?
No, that would be the end of the game.
So what you're saying is, if you've got to 80, you've got a certain part of the game, well, there'll be uproar then. If you've got to a certain part of the game and a game goes past a certain time limit, then rule in the favour of the team that's winning. Can you imagine the outrage that would
There
come
would be a
with
lot
that?
of outrage, but I just think it's just as bad on the other side of the coin, especially when you're making teams wait 2+ hours to come back out and play again. I think if it's like a quick one, okay, we can see this one's going to blow over, then fine, like restart the game.
I get it from a player.
2 hours is ridiculous.
I get it from an injury point of view. They've gone cold. I don't get it from both teams are coming back in with a mindset. Chelsea know what they've got to do, which is they've got to defend for 5 minutes and focus themselves on that job. Yes, the team with the momentum, they weren't going into that break with any momentum. They might have reset their thinking, but Chelsea can reset theirs.
Yeah, but why do you think there's so many late goals in games, Simon?
Because people are tired.
No, it's to do with gambling, essentially. Managers make certain moves where they kind of, even you as players, you think, I'm not tracking him back because let's just win it and gamble. And everyone gambles, and then the opposition side, they drop deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And then all it takes is a little nick here or a little nick there.
That's a fair comment. But there's also an element of fatigue that comes into play because when defenders at the beginning of the game, they're much sharper, they're much more susceptible.
Of course,
to it. So the bottom line is the combination of one team gambling for it and launching it into the box, and the one team defending deep and getting a bit tired. So we know that. But in this instance, neither that applies. Chelsea will not be tired, and neither will Benfica because they both had a 90-minute rest. So Chelsea can come out just
they're on exercise bikes. Yeah,
fine.
They're keeping it going.
That's the way I'm saying it. It was a gamble.
We're saying that the loss of momentum for Chelsea was disadvantageous, and he probably is right because he's been in circumstances and he can talk about it from a professional footballer's point of view. But it's also a mindset. If Maresco knows what's coming, he must know that they're going to be up. Right, they're going to do what they're going to do in this last 5 or 6 minutes because they've got a new lease of life and 90 minutes to replenish themselves, reinvigorate their thinking. But so have we. We've got to do what we have to do to stop them from. But Jermaine's bigger point is what an awful penalty it was.
It was a shocker.
I mean, the bottom line is this could well happen next summer.
It will do. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to USA '94. My dad moved to America when I was young, and he took me out there to go and watch Republic of Ireland take on Italy in the Giant Stadium. I remember being sat there as a kid, and it was unbearably hot. And on top of that, it was the first time I'd ever seen like a drinks break in a proper football match.
Yeah.
So this has been happening for years. I think, inevitably, by the time the World Cup comes along, players are excited, fans are excited. I think hopefully a lot of wrinkles have been ironed out. You can't control the weather. That is just something where it just purely comes down to safety, and that is it.
But surely the difference in this instance is that this is a predominantly West Coast competition.
Yeah.
If you play up on the East Coast, you're not going to have tornadoes and storms in the same way that you have tornadoes and storms down in Florida and the Keys and other parts of Los Angeles to some extent.
Right.
So in this instance, if you're playing in Mexico, you're playing in other parts of the common denominator is you're probably going to have heat. But I would suspect you're not going to have many games cancelled as we've got now because not all the games are being played in that area.
No, yeah.
Funnily enough, though, I mean, could you see it happening? A World Cup semi-final. England, Germany, 89 minutes in, they've got to suspend play.
I mean, have you watched football lately, Jim? All these things are happening kind of all the time. Random things that we're seeing with VAR and technology coming in. Football's completely changed. This is not something that is going to be so out of the ordinary for these players. They're they've played in COVID. They are going through such a weird time.
Winter World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah.
The world changes.
Oh, of course. That's why I find it amusing that Maresca's saying, in a World Cup, how many games are suspended? Probably 0. In Europe, how many games? 0. Yeah, we know that, but it's not in Europe.
No.
And there will be games where the game was played, Chelsea against Benfica. So there's a more than probable chance that this could happen.
100%. And this is something that all of a sudden then as a coach and as a player you have to bolt onto your mentality. This is something that is a wrinkle that could get chucked in that I need to be prepared for. Because then if I want to win a World Cup, who cares about a weather delay?
But the central theme is right though. When we pair it all back and we can all have our ideological differences, why play this tournament there?
Bit late now for that.
I know. That's the one thing I agree with everybody on. Why there? Because what it does is not only goes the normal complaints that we listen about player welfare, we've now got a whole raft of other complaints as well that don't need to be there.
Yeah.
You've got fan welfare as well, by the way. And you've got all these other aspects when it comes to the nature of the weather at that particular area of the world.
I can't really see them give it thunder and lightning. Say nothing, play on. I mean, can you imagine it? Anyway, no, the weather argument, we will not be binning this. And that was all thanks to Keep Britain Tidy.
Get in the bin! On talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. No ifs, no buts. If you smoke, bin your butts.
Now, you'll be pleased to know, and I'm personally pleased to know because, my God, we've read this often enough, the wait is finally over as the reunion of the century starts this weekend, and we're giving you the chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester, July the 19th. You heard it right. It might be sold out, but you can get in thanks to us. Alongside the tickets, we'll put you up for a night in a hotel, put $5,000 in your back pocket, completely tax-free. Listen up now. Here's everything you need to know.
On iArcade, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 to AGP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July.
This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Yes, indeed. So the Oasis gig just around the corner, and you could be there. We shall get to that. In the meantime, we're sticking on this. The Lions tour is off and running down under. They played their opening game at the weekend, and I watched it, as many of you would. Many of you would listen to it on talkSPORT, and I listened to that as well, a bit of it. 54-7. They were in Perth, and they beat Western Force. I wonder what former Lion and talkSPORT pundit Gordon Darcy thought of it. Gordon, good morning. What did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty good. Kind of probably more in line with what they were expecting. Probably the Argentina game before they left was probably a sterner test than they needed at this stage in the tour. So you got to see some familiar faces getting some game time together. Finn Russell looked very good. And yeah, two Pilato and some big performances up front. Joe McCarthy and Pollock, probably the guys that stood out.
I mean, it was a great win and a convincing win, Gordon. They probably hoped for that. They expected that. But in terms of the match itself, compared to the actual tests, there is by far nowhere near the same intensity, I would have thought.
No, and like probably Rugby Australia has been going through its own ups and downs over the last decade. And probably the club rugby is not in as good a position as it may have been in other tours. I suppose maybe that's why the British and Irish Lions were looking to get as many test players released into the club games to make sure that those matches are of a decent enough competition. Because the one thing you don't want is 50-point routes in your lead up to your first test match. So like that said, what the Lions are going to get out of this is they're going to be looking to kind of fine tune their attack shape and and see what partnerships are working. And I think we started to see a little bit of that. We saw some players who've played two games in a row or been involved in 2 games in a row, starting to find not find a bit of form, but consistently showing what they can do. Obviously, Finn Russell playing and then playing again next week. So yeah, they kind of have to make the best of what they can do with the opposition. So I think a lot of this will be around finding partnerships, finding a little bit of familiarity with each other. But I definitely think they would like a sterner test.
I'm sure they would.
Well, where were you last week, Gordon, on the argument that seemed to be raging between Joel Schmidt and the release of certain players and playing a lineup that the English team British Lions had assumed they were going to be playing against certain opposition? Where were you on that sort of argument that was raging?
It is a tough one. Joe's very calculating with what he says and what he releases into the media. So I'm sure there was definite thought from him behind it. It's like, when you think back to, say, the New Zealand tour, where you had the Crusaders, you had the Highlanders, you had genuine competition for a touring side that was trying to find its way back together. As a purist, you would say all the Wallabies should be playing for the in the warm up matches to get them ready as well for this test match. But that's just not the way rugby has gone. They want to protect their players. They don't have the strength and depth. So I think it is just the tour that we're on, and we probably judge a hindsight bias with this tour, that if Australia win the series, they will say, well, we did what was necessary to win the tour, because really that's all that matters. 2005 we won nearly all the midweek matches, but ultimately lost the series, and the same in 2009 down in South Africa. So really, I think this is noise, and it's enjoyable noise to be part of, but ultimately it's all about those 3 matches.
I felt sorry for Thomas Williams. Scores 2 tries, but goes off with a hamstring issue. Now he's out the tour, and no doubt be on his way home. I mean, that was tragic for him, wasn't it?
It's desperate. Like it's the roller coaster of emotions that the Lions provides. So I had the pleasure of being selected once and then called up, but the people obviously getting to called up for, they're leaving. So as soon as he scored that try and grabbed his hamstring, every player, every sports person just went, that's it. It's done. You knew his tour was over, and then White being called up. For him, it's a great opportunity. Not involved on the first one. So, sorry, in the first round of picks, but coming up from Toulon now, will be eager to come into it. But it is absolutely heartbreaking because there was so many people. There's so few Welsh players on this tour.
Yeah.
He was one of them that was backed to make an impact.
Oh, it was a great try. But of course, on the other hand, Ben White, the Scotland number 9, has replaced him. So, Jermaine, I'm quite happy that a Scot gets a chance to go in there. I won't ask Simon for his views on that. One thing I did notice, Gordon, and you would as well, Jermaine, I love this. I don't know if you've been following it. The Aussies have got one great sense of humour. And in the person of the Perth stadium announcer, he certainly backed that up, Gordon. Did you hear it pre-match? He engaged in his own trolling of the Lions by singling out the players who were born in the Southern Hemisphere. Our former Aussie at number 14, Mac Hansen, plays for them today. At number 11, the Kiwi, now Irishman, James Lowe. At prop, the former South African schoolboy, now a Scotsman, Pierre Sherman. I mean, I have to say, he took the mick big time, and it was funny, but I'm glad the scoreline was thrown right back in his face.
Yeah, listen, Australians don't really care, do they? And particularly, glass houses and all that. A couple of notable New Zealanders and I suppose Islanders that have decided to wear an Australian jersey. But listen, who cares? The Australian humour it's a funny old one, isn't it? Because they are like they mastered the sledging and cricket and other sports. So it's of no surprise for me to see them getting a little bit tongue in cheek with the announcements. Like, I've played against Australia for most of my career, and the players navigate that lovely it's no surprise to see the stadium announcer getting involved.
I love it.
Every Australian in that stadium would have found it very funny.
Well, I must admit, I was giggling at the time. Gordon, thank you very much indeed. The Lions, next up for them, Queensland Reds on Wednesday, live in the talkSPORT network. Updates with us, because it's during our slot, Simon, between 10 and 1. We'll keep an eye on that. We're keeping an eye on this, day 1 of Wimbledon. Let's get an update on the early stages of the early play from Lisa O'Sullivan.
Yeah, set to be a day of extremes all round at the All England Club. Temperatures at the ground climbing now, heading into the 30s. It's going to be much hotter on the courts as well. 2025 sees more British players in action since 1984, and 14 are playing today, 3 already on court. I'm watching the British women's number 3, Sonny Cartel, battle the former French Open and very entertaining champion, Jelena Ostapenko. And it is not looking good for the Brit at the moment. Ostapenko is leading 4-1 in the first set.
Lisa, thank you very much indeed. Day 1, we'll be back throughout the show. In the meantime, we're coming up to 11:30 this Monday morning. Jim White, Simon Jordan, Jermaine Jenas, live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
Devastating news for Wales scrum half Thomas Williams. He's been ruled out of the Lions tour due to a hamstring injury. Head coach Andy Farrell says it's a big blow.
He's got some sad news this morning. He'll be leaving camp.
Former Lion Will Greenwood told us this could be a sadly defining moment in Williams' career.
Unless he comes back in 2029, for the rest of his life, we'll have a mixed relationship with the British and Irish Lions.
Now, from the Lions in Australia to the Lionesses in Switzerland, their Euro title defence kicks off this week. They beat Jamaica 7-0 in a friendly last night. There was a return for Lauren James after her injury, but Sarina Wiegman is staying coy about her starting lineup.
So this is the first time that she could get minutes, and yeah, then we hope next week we can keep building her, and then going into France. And we also know that there's a lot of competition going on up front, but also in midfield.
Are you getting into the Club World Cup yet? Our reporter Ben Jacobs has told us potential semi-finals between Chelsea, Man City, PSG and Real Madrid could build excitement. But he also pointed out,
if it all comes back to UEFA again, UEFA, the big powerhouse in all of this, may say, well, why are we playing all of these games just to again have 4 UEFA teams in the semi-finals, however entertaining that is.
And Wimbledon is underway out in the sun, so head to talksport.com for plenty of exclusives to read while you eat your strawberries and cream.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
And it's that time. Matt Gibson from BetMGM joins us. We'll look at some of the events on the go right now and the odds around and about them. And of course, we're going to talk more with Jermaine and Simon about this. England's under-21s, Matt, retaining their Euros title. But by God, that was an achievement. It was a great game. You no doubt watched it.
Yeah, morning, fellas. I did tune in on Saturday evening. It's got to be said there was some great talent on show from both sides. Odds-wise, lads, England were 9-2 to win the whole thing pre-tournament and 27 to beat Germany on Friday. From a bookie's point of view, no surprise to see England thereabouts, but Lee Carr's and his team winning this thing back-to-back, it's got to be said, is a fantastic achievement. If you look at his 2023 squad, the likes of Trafford, Colwill, Palmer, Gibbs, White, Madueke, Jones, all featured in that 2023 squad. They've all been named in Thomas Tuchel's most recent England squad. I just wonder, lads, if you watched the final or watched any games throughout of it, is the 4, 5, 6 names that you could put up to maybe get involved in the World Cup next year, but certainly Euro 2028 is surely a target for some of these players.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk more, Jermaine, but 1 or 2 of them must be thinking, if I can keep this going, I'll get into Tuchel's plans for next summer.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is it's just a bigger jump than people think it is. Yeah. There's some very talented individuals in there, and I think the good thing about a lot of the players in there, I think Anderson in particular, Elliott obviously, who had a great major tournament. I think someone like Elliott is the great case study here for that exact question, because what does Harvey Elliott do now when he goes back to Liverpool? Have Liverpool looked at that situation and gone, wow, he's now gone on to do that, let's try and keep hold of him, or and give him more of an opportunity, or do they look at it as, okay, we can just add more money onto kind of like the sale of Harvey Elliott? The bottom line of it is Harvey Elliott, wherever he goes back to in the summer, has to be starting football for him to play for England.
Yeah, so it's pretty much a win-win for Liverpool, isn't it?
But it's not a win-win for Harvey Elliott, though. Because
Maybe
if
not.
He goes back to Liverpool and they say, we're keeping you, and he's not starting ahead of Florian Wirtz and co, then that pathway into the England first team is not there.
It's a good point. I was looking at the levels you played at all the way through until the senior England team. We'll get to that later. Dare I say it, the Club World Cup, Matt, what are you thinking?
It's starting to take shape, isn't it, gents?
Oh, yes.
Chelsea through to the quarters after extra time and a rainstorm against Benfica. I think Dan Towers was on the show on Friday, and he mentioned that when Chelsea qualified for the round of 16, they pretty much paid for Liam Delap in the fees that they accumulated so far. If the rumours about João Pedro and his price tag is to be believed, I think they need to win the whole thing to pay for their strike force. The winner of this gets about 90 million quid. So I guess that's the importance of the competition, lads, isn't it? Like, if you win it, you get to buy 2 new strikers that can potentially give you Champions League football and win the league next year. In terms of elsewhere in the competition, Bayern and PSG through as we thought they would be, and they play each other on Saturday, which will be a really good game. This evening, Man City against Al Hilal. City 3 from 3 in the group, scoring 13 goals. All right, they might not have been tested too much, and maybe it's too early to say that Man City are back, but they certainly look pretty dangerous in this competition, don't they?
I mean, we were talking about that earlier, weren't we, Simon? That is the beauty of this thing. If you're Boli or Igbali, you win it. Okay, lovely. That's Delap paid off. That's us got João Pedro.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it depends how much of those bonuses have been snaffled by the players for being there in the first place.
Jermaine, you could have put the house on that.
It's not it's not just a straight line, but yeah, of course it will be. Of course there will be some significant benefit. And Chelsea, of all football clubs, they're still spending like drunken sailors, aren't they? Yeah. They're still spending 250 million quid. All this idea that they're going to get caught by PSR and having to sell their women's teams and hotels doesn't seem to touch the sides with Chelsea. They keep on. It's not me, but all things being equal, whatever.
The worrying thing is, it's none of us. So what is it?
God knows.
It's your phone, isn't it?
I don't think so.
It is. It's on this, I bet. Someone's doing like a Find My.
Stay with us, Matt. We'll just be with you.
I'm about to say it's not me.
Yeah, it is. Someone's done Find My iPad. There you go.
There you go. There you go. The place is bugged. But Simon, you were saying,
of course, if you're going to get somewhere between 40 and 100 million pounds for being in this tournament, for most of these football clubs, it's going to be somewhere in a region of about between 8 and 10% of their yearly turnover.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to add opportunities to be able to deal with the ridiculousness of the mess that clubs have got themselves into, and the governance has got itself into with this stupidity of PSR.
Simon's not having PSR, as you probably gathered, Jermaine. You probably gathered that.
I'm kind of with him, to be honest with you. I think.
Well, who is? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
There's too many loopholes and ways of getting out of it, and also the negative impact it has on kind of the young. Homegrown players as well, because of clubs getting rid of them when they can get rid of them basically, and I don't know what it does to the actual spreadsheet, but essentially, like Cole Palmer leaving Manchester City helped Manchester City from a financial point of view. I don't like that. When you put so much time and energy into a player, bringing him through, we're creating a model now that is not, in my opinion, benefiting the kids.
The basic premise of the Premier League, why it's been so successful, is it's open for business. And it was open for business. So you can't open something for business and then suddenly decide that you close it again.
Yeah.
Because the ramifications of it are that everyone that's already established is now up and away. So what are Newcastle going to do now? Newcastle have every right to do what Chelsea did. Every right to do what Man City did in terms of buy players, build their football club and try to create an outcome. My big thing with PSR was I hoped it suppressed player wages. I hoped it suppressed transfer fees. It didn't. So all you've done now is make sure that Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea, they're okay, Jack.
Yeah.
Newcastle, what are they going to do? What are Forest going to do? How can Forest get their turnover up to 600 million quid to compete with Liverpool? They can't. So then you've killed the competitivity of the league.
I know we've gone a little bit off piece there, but the kind of the other end of the scale with the teams that are coming up into the league.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to be walking into an era where teams are just going to overspend and take the risk on the points deduction?
No, because they would have done on the finances, because they can take it on the chin. The points deduction is existential. You get points, you get relegated. The big thing with getting promoted is they should cut this crap out about carrying losses from the Championship. You should be able to carry the same losses into the Premier League that the Premier League clubs are. You can't go up with £25 million less.
Correct, yeah.
You get killed.
Yeah.
So you already got the disadvantage going up against clubs that are established in there. Now you've got the financial impact of carrying less losses in the Championship. It's not fair.
No, it's not. And you're seeing that clearly, aren't you? In the results.
Exactly. I think the authorities need to start listening to you. We have to every morning. Day one of Wimbledon, Matt, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's going to be the hottest day ever, according to the news bulletin that I just read.
The hottest day ever.
Well, at Wimbledon. At Wimbledon.
In the history of the world.
At Wimbledon. At
Wimbledon. Right.
I think there's plenty of Brits in action. I think it's the most since 1984. Sean Martin coming out with the stats again. I think I found a threefold. I think Bolter, Fernley, Raducanu at 6-1 to win their matches is not bad value. And then, of course, the big question is, I know Simon's answer, is anyone going to beat Carlos Alcaraz? We don't think so. He's 6-5 to win the whole thing.
Brilliant. Matt, thank you very much indeed. That was a look at the latest odds. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app on the hottest day ever. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
Never mind about the heat. I mean, Matt Gibson giving us the exclusive news there that today is going to be the hottest day we've ever known. Certainly at Wimbledon, it will be very hot. It's going to be about 32 degrees here this afternoon. That is hot, isn't it? If you're a tennis player, we're going about footballers, Jermaine. But if you're out there, every 2 games, you're back and you're sitting down, aren't you?
Globe. They play in hot weather all the time.
Yeah.
They play everywhere is hot. So they're used to it. Tennis players are used to it. You don't hear them complaining about welfare, do you? Well,
no.
Some of them do.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no need to change anything, is there? After a couple of games, you're sat there, you even got a brolly put over your head.
Oh, yeah.
And
go run around.
Barley water.
Go run around in 90 degrees heat in France for 5.5 hours and see how you feel.
Depends what side of the coin you're on. You know, if you were Federer just knocking people around the court, you wouldn't break sweat, would you? But if you're the one that's having to do all the doggies, then it's brutal.
Correct. Here's the thing for you. Legend of the sport, Billie Jean King. I think Billie Jean King, for those who don't know, of course, dominated the sport.
Bobby Riggs.
That's right. 81 years of age is our Billie. But she is saying, hang on a second, all this all-white dress code, surely it's time to drop that, says Billie Jean King.
She want them in rainbow flags.
There's a match comes on, you sit down and you look, let's say it's television, who's who. People will say, well, the mark is next to their name to indicate who's serving. But I shouldn't have to look at that mark. Here's the thing. I'd have merchandise with their names on the back so they'd make money. The tournament would make money. Everybody makes money. We're losing out in millions and millions because of that. Numbers are really important. I'd love numbers on the backs so that kids can see the numbers, like a Federer. It's so obvious. I mean, what are we talking about there? Names and numbers on the back of the top tennis players.
Absolutely not for me. I mean, you know what? I think the more we kind of go down this like technological era and you know, I suppose trying to get fan interaction and so on and so forth, the more I look at events like Wimbledon and Augusta and have way more kind of love and affection for exactly how they are
because of the tradition.
They're just mini time portals, you know, and I think the traditions should be upheld, you know, for those exact reasons. I think as a player, if I'm a tennis player, I'm looking forward to going to Wimbledon and putting on my whites and, you know, looking the part. There's just something about Wimbledon that has a special aura about it that I think you should respect, and it should be kept exactly as it is.
Billie Jean is saying, but you know, kids love numbers, and they could retire the numbers when those players are finished. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it?
I don't know.
I'm with Jermaine.
I don't know whether she's just talking about specifically Wimbledon, but she's talking about from a merchandising point of view. Very rarely do you see the guys that are around these sports that are merchandising the life out of everything, missing tricks. Federer did it years ago, didn't he, with his own brand of RF. Yeah. He had to be careful and pushed up against the lines a few times, and the All England club brought him back into line. Look, I'm not. Everything evolves. If everything stays the same, it doesn't improve. Wimbledon's now gone to no middle Sundays. It's gone to a court with both number one court and the centre court having roofs over the top of it now. So we've seen changes, but change for change's sake is just nothing but change. And we, on one hand, we talk about the commercialisation of sport and the Disneyfication. On another hand, we're talking about Billie Jean King coming from the 1970s, where she was a dominant force and a great thinker, into a space that. Is it broken? I mean, we are seeing, and we've just seen the statistics, and you trotted them out last week about the decline in people's attitude towards tennis and the viewing figures that go with it. And maybe there is some thought processes, but this is not a team sport. It doesn't have the same tribalism that follows teams and colours and mentalities. And maybe there is something in it, but I'm not entirely sure what point she's really making about.
Well, it was back in 1995, apparently. The organisers at Wimbledon, Jermaine, tightened the whole thing up. Clothing when on court, including tracksuits, sweaters, shoes, got to be almost entirely white. It's acceptable to have a trim of colour, but no wider than 1 centimetre. I mean, that's Wimbledon to me, isn't it?
I just don't have an issue with it. I think,
No, me too.
you look across, when you walk kind of the halls of Wimbledon and you look across the history of time at like all of the winners, the men's and the women's team, there's a continuity of what they look like and the class and quality that is, I suppose, expected at that club. And that's not to say if you're playing in like the ATP in Miami, or if you're playing in Queens, or wherever it may be at any other time in the world, Roland Garros, then they have different rules. But there's just something about the whites at Wimbledon that just keeps some traditions, please, is all I'm saying.
Tradition. Quite right. Well said.
It is the biggest tournament in the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, despite the other 3 slams, they are big and significant in their own countries, and we have a tendency to believe our own hype about what we think is like the Americans have the World Series for baseball, only with Americans in it, right? Maybe some Canadians. But the point is it is universally accepted that Wimbledon is the most profitable, the most well-attended, and the most reputable, and there has to be something about that. And some of it is the tradition. And some of it is the manner in which they operate, and some of it is the great players that have won it.
Well, the manner in which the under-21s operated was extremely effective on Saturday night, because they did it again, and they retained the trophy under Lee Carsley. We'll get into that with Jermaine Jenas after this. .32 degrees here in London this afternoon. It's going to be hot, hot, hot. How's it going to be at Wimbledon for those players on day one? Here is Lisa to bring us right up to date.
Yeah, it's scheduled to be the hottest opening day at Wimbledon in history. Not the hottest day ever. That was 35.7 degrees. And I don't think we're going to creep up to that in the grounds. We might do on the centre court, slightly warmer down in the bowl there. But just keeping an eye on the British number 3, Sunny Cartel, at the moment, because she's playing Yelena Ostapenko, who was struggling in the early part of the first set, but has got it back on serve, is now serving to try and level the match at 5 games all in the first.
Lisa, thank you very much indeed. Jermaine Jenas in with Simon and myself this morning. We're delighted to have him, especially as we alight on this topic. England's under-21s are European champions again. I watched it. Hugely entertaining match. There were 2 up on the young Germans. The Germans got it back to 2-2, and then England won it in extra time. It was thoroughly entertaining and thoroughly well deserved. And another very much feather in the cap of Lee Carsley. Jermaine, you played at every level from under 15s onwards. Last week, when Martin O'Neill was sitting in the very seat that you're sitting in, we said to Martin, so let's say they win it. How easy is it to translate that success further up the food chain to the seniors? Martin was interesting in this. Have a listen.
It doesn't necessarily follow. If it did follow, then it would be an interesting debate. But it doesn't follow. Does that mean it's worthless, as you said, or is it not worthwhile? I think it's worthwhile. I do think it. I think it's great for under 17s, under 19 players to represent their country. I think that's absolutely fine. I watched the game last night. The last bits of it between that's this competition that England now in the semi-final against Germany and Italy. Italy trying to defend with 9 players and into extra time. And so those things, and you see 1 or 2 players, young players, who are going past people, and you think, oh gosh, that'll be exciting. Wonder how they'll do in about 3 years' time. Yeah. So all of that's interesting. But if you're talking about the ultimate, the winning of the World Cup at senior level, who knows how many players can come through?
Jermaine, as I said, you played at every level. So the boys win it again at under 21 level. Why wouldn't that translate further up to the absolute senior level?
It depends how you kind of like quantify how does it translate. If we're talking about winning, then it's a cup competition. So you need an element of luck to win a cup competition anyway, with penalty shootouts and so on and so forth. I think where I'd probably disagree in terms of I think it does translate is because you need an understanding how to play tournament football. And that just goes as far as, travelling to different places, dealing with different referees, being away together as a group of individuals that are coming up against, the best opposition of your age group in the world. And then when you do that kind of at a senior level, if you've done it throughout, the ranks, under 15, 16, 17, and then under 21s level, you're much more equipped and understanding of how to do that. I remember when I got selected to go to an England under 20 World Cup, and I'd just got into the Newcastle team. It was my first season, and Bobby Robson kind of called me in, and he was like, "Look, I don't want you to leave, essentially, because we've got the season starting." And I think kind of the messaging was along the lines of, Rooney's not going either. So there was myself and Wayne Rooney that was kind of called up to go and represent England at under 21 level, but it was going to be at the detriment of starting that Premier League season. And we both decided to play in the Premier League because it felt like the more important thing to do at that particular time, because that's what was getting fed to us, when in reality, when that experience we would have both had going to an under 20 World Cup would have been way more valuable for the country. If you look at all the teams, Cesc Fabregas' Spain side, or Messi's Argentinian side, or the German side of Özil and Khedira and so on and so forth, they had huge success at under 21 level, and then it translated into getting to the latter stages of major tournaments. Once you get to the latter stages, then you need a bit of luck to win it. So It does translate.
Does wearing the England jersey, does it feel less heavy at that younger age than it does when you're in the big team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, you go to the England under 21 major tournaments, and there's an atmosphere there, but it's much more of a kind of like festival feel to it. Yeah. When you go to a World Cup with the England first team, it's a totally different feel. Like, you feel the pressure of the nation. You know that the beer gardens are full. You know every single kick and every single minute of you being involved in that team is going to have an impact on everybody at home's life. Whereas if England would have lost that game against Germany, the under 21 game, there wouldn't have been uproar, there wouldn't have been the trolling on social media, there wouldn't have been the vilifying of Beckham coming back from, because it's under 21s. So it's totally different. The pressure's like 100% different.
I get it, Jermaine, but I'm bound to think that it augurs well for England going forward.
Well, yeah, because the alternative is you don't win anything anywhere. The absolutism of the question is, and this is where it becomes very binary, Jermaine, and it's not possible for it to be binary. You win something at a youth level, why doesn't it translate at the seniors? And the question is not that; it's much more nuanced than that, because obviously certain players would play very well, as you've said, at lesser levels in terms of less pressure, less expectation, and less of an opposition to some extent. You go up to the national side, you're playing against the best players in the world from all the nations around the world. So I think that it must have translated, because otherwise we wouldn't have got into tournaments. But then again, you rolled back the argument, and I remember saying it to Martin last week. Look at Dave Sexton in the 80s. I mean, our national side in the 80s wasn't great. I mean, we didn't qualify for the 77, 78 World Cup. We qualified in 82, and we did okay, but we weren't great in Spain. But we didn't. In '86, we got knocked out by Argentina in the quarterfinals, didn't we? But we've gone into tournaments, and despite my protestations about how we should have done in these tournaments, clearly we've gone better in these tournaments. So it must be related.
Yes, yeah.
So there must be a payoff. But what you're looking for is the question is, why don't you then win?
Yeah, that's it.
But that then comes down to the luck and the decisions that are made by people like Mancini in games against England in the European Championships when he needed to change something, changed it. They win the game. South Africa doesn't change it. We lose.
And also, you just got to keep putting yourself in that position. It's a bit like Manchester City and for years not winning the Champions League. And everyone's going, well, you've thrown all this money at it, so how can you not go and win the Champions League? But year on, year out, it was semi-final, quarter-final, learning, experience, gaining, just much more momentum about being comfortable in that moment. And that's where the translation comes. It's like, okay, we've been to a couple of finals. We've had a semi-final, a quarter-final, getting knocked out against France. It's just a consistent nature to being in the biggest room at the biggest time that makes you feel more and more comfortable, and then eventually you knock down the door. It doesn't happen straight away, but it will happen.
I know the answer to this, Jermaine, is so many things need to go right, but you know what's coming. Is this going to be England's time next year?
I don't think so, no. Not personally, me. I mean, I'm looking at that France team already and just thinking, this is why these tournaments are so important, though, as well, at the same time, and the moments within them are so important. Because, when we played against France in Qatar, I think you were there, weren't you? Yeah. And it was one of the first times I'd watched the game with England and thought they'd really kind of lost that fear factor with somebody like France in particular.
Once they got into the game.
And they really kind of took it to him. I think, Kane puts that penalty away, we clearly win the game. You could feel the energy was with us, and you looked at France and they looked like they got away with one, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Whereas all of a sudden you blink, 3 years down the line and PSG have turned out, some of the best youngsters you're likely to see. French football is looking vibrant again. And are we kind of going the other way? I don't know. It just shifts and moves so quick. So it's going to be, I just don't see us as in a strong as position as we were last time out.
Wow. Yeah. Could be more of the same, Simon. And this time, no Gareth.
Well, the key component
to steer your narrative towards.
The key component is Tuchel. It's Tuchel. If Tuchel can do something different to what Gareth said, we'll have our moments. Don't forget in the European Championships, it was dreadful, and Spain, and France got knocked out. And I'm slightly different to Jermaine on the French thing. I think if we'd approached the game with more boldness and stuck it on the French throughout the entirety of the game, we'd have won that game. And when we had an opportunity to spin the wheel, we didn't, and we let the French back in. And all Kane was doing was getting us back in the game by taking that penalty, rather than have put it out of sight, which is what the French would have done to us. And that's a managerial choice and a psychological approach.
On Harvey Elliott, very briefly, Jermaine, do you think he needs to leave?
Yes, is my honest answer. Yeah, I think anytime you're a young player and you're bought, you are just. I know he was taken from Fulham, but at a very young age to go play for Liverpool.
Sure.
But when somebody puts real money on the table for you and they're paying you real wages as a player, he needs to put himself in that position where the club will have to almost play him week in, week out, and obviously that needs to be probably a Champions League team, or at least a Europa League team where he's playing week in, week out.
But if you look at the direction of travel for him, Slot's come in. He's played 34 games, 36 games under Klopp. In the first season with Slot, he's played 18 games.
Mm-hmm.
So the die's been cast, and they're still buying other players. So it's likely he's going to be a peripheral player.
Yeah.
So with that, he has to leave, doesn't he, really?
Well done, Harvey, though. Well done, Harvey. Well done to Lee Carsley, who I saw recently at Wembley. Pleased for him. He's a good lad, is Lee. And England's under-21s do it again. It's Jim White, Simon Jordan, Jermaine Jenas live on talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes, as we come up to 12 noon.
Devastating news for Wales scrum half Thomas Williams. He's been ruled out of the Lions tour due to a hamstring injury. Head coach Andy Farrell says it's a big blow.
Got a slightly worse injury than we first thought, so it's going to be medium to long-termish. So unfortunately, he's got some sad news this morning, and he'll be leaving camp.
Former Lion Will Greenwood told us this could be a sadly defining moment in Williams' career.
Unless he comes back in 2029, for the rest of his life, we'll have a mixed relationship with the British and Irish Lions, because he is one, and everyone will say, was it amazing? Was it amazing? And he'll go, yeah, but...
Now, from the Lions in Australia to the Lionesses in Switzerland, their Euro title defence kicks off this week. They beat Jamaica 7-0 in a friendly last night. There was a return for Lauren James after her injury, but Sarina Wiegman is staying coy about her starting lineup.
So this is the first time that she could get minutes, and yeah, then we hope next week we can keep building her, and then going into France. And we also know that there's a lot of competition going on up front, but also in midfield. So we figure out in the last couple of days how we will start.
Are you getting into the Club World Cup yet? Our reporter Ben Jacobs has told us potential semi-finals between Chelsea, Man City, PSG and Real Madrid could build excitement, but he also pointed out
the danger of that, however entertaining, is if it all comes back to UEFA again, UEFA, the big powerhouse in all of this, may say, well, why are we playing all of these games just to again have 4 UEFA teams in the semi-finals, however entertaining that is the world football audience.
After England's under-21s won the Euros, Henry Winter has paid tribute to their manager.
Lee Carsley, with what he's done back-to-back Euros, the way he has done it, the way he's also, just talking to him out in Slovakia, the way he learnt from that experience, going through the furnace of media and public scrutiny with England. I think he learnt from that, and absolutely he will be a contender when Tuchel leaves in the summer.
And Wimbledon is underway out in the sun, so head to talksport.com for plenty of exclusives to read while you eat your strawberries and cream.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is officially Monday afternoon. It's Jim White, Simon Jordan and Jermaine Jenas, former Tottenham and Newcastle midfielder, and England at every level, of course, not to be forgotten about. And we are live on talkSPORT, streaming live on YouTube and your smart TV as well. A lot to get through in the final hour, and a lot of people getting in touch. Some Rangers fans getting in touch. Yes, tomorrow. So David Murray will be, former owner, will be joining Simon and myself live on the show. You can look forward to that. So David's book is just out. Metal is the name of that book for a variety of reasons. We'll get to that when we get to it. In the meantime, we are alighting on this, the Club World Cup, and of course, it was bound to happen, and it has happened. FIFA has officially launched a disciplinary investigation into the racial abuse allegations made by Real Madrid's Antonio Rudiger from a Pachuca player, the defender Gustavo Cabral. What happened here was in stoppage time of last weekend's Group H clash between Real Madrid and the Mexican club in Charlotte. Rudiger claims he was racially abused, but Cabral disputed this after the game by stating he had called Rudiger a phrase which would translate into being an effing coward. That basically was a translation of it. There was nothing racist in what I said the Argentinian. I called him an expletive coward. As we say often enough in Argentina, that was all. But again, we're in this territory of a racism debate at a major tournament. Do the authorities face an impossible situation when it's one player's word against another? And I think basically, Jermaine, that's what we've got here. The reason I'm throwing this at you was, I don't know if you remember, back in 2023, you were talking about what we see on social media, what we see on the internet. There are so many good things about the internet, but it's also become the new home for racism. When I first started out, you had fans throwing bananas at John Barnes as he was running down the wing. Now you get idiots chucking banana emojis into Bukayo Saka's socials. And now we've got it here, allegedly. allegedly being said at a major tournament. One player's word against another. This seems never to go away, Jermaine, does it?
Well, no, it's it's always there. There's no doubt about that, and I don't really think quantifying whether the amount it happened in the 80s, the amount it happened now means anything anyway. Whether it's once or 100 times, we don't want it in the game at all. But obviously, I'm trying to get to the bottom of what's actually even happened here. Because there's no doubt that from a South American point of view, there always seems to be a certain type of language that is very casually used almost in their culture, that coming over to Europe seems to catch them out. We had a situation with Bentancur, I think, earlier on in the year, and albeit they might sometimes they might be talking from a friendly point of view. Sometimes it doesn't translate as that. So
we had a Uruguayan centre forward at Man United, didn't we?
Edinson
Cavani. We've had Suarez. We've had a few that have all been linked with some racial issues, and now. So I suppose the question is, we've flirted around what's been said to Rudiger, but we don't know exactly what's been said.
Well, that's right.
And like you said, it's his word against Anthony Rudiger's, but the reality is, of course, racism's still around, and I don't ever see it going, to be honest with you.
What baffles me, Jermaine, is what can the authorities actually do here? One player says X, the other player says no, he said Y.
Yeah, we can't do anything. What can they do? If it's like having two kids come to you, and my two kids going, well, he hit me, and then she going, well, no, he hit me first, and you go, well, give me some proof, and you haven't got any. So who do you tell off first? This is essentially the same situation. So you want, obviously, to be looking at Anthony Rudiger and going, look, I fully believe what you're saying. But unfortunately, I haven't got.
He's saying different.
He's saying he didn't.
Did you play in the odd game, Jermaine, when something was said and another player denies it?
Not so much the denying of it, no. I think when I was playing, if it was coming, it was loud, and it was you heard it. I played in the game for England in Spain at the Bernabeu when Sean Wright-Phillips and Heskey, myself and others. There was monkey chants just getting chanted around the stadium as we were playing. Whenever you played a lot of the time in Eastern Europe, it was rife. You heard it a lot, and this is going from under 19 level for England to first team and playing European football. You heard it, so it was less. I don't know. The energy around wanting to cure the problem was very different. So from a player's point of view, you very rarely complained, because in my mind it was like, I walk out the Bernabeu, for example, and I just get press asking me questions. Did we hear what we thought we heard? What did you think about that scenario? And I'm sat there going, well, you all heard it. Why aren't we all doing something about it? But nobody at that particular time had the tools or ways to go about things to suspend these players and clubs and so on and so forth.
Did you ever hear anything in your career from a fellow professional? And you went, I heard that. That might land him in trouble.
Maybe in Europe, like I said, but I don't remember too much in the Premier League, no.
Yeah. Because at the moment, Simon, there is this feeling that FIFA have slept a bit on the anti-racism messaging around and about this Club World Cup. And certainly a fellow who we had on the other day, and you'll certainly remember this, former Chicago Fire player and chair of the Human Rights Soccer Alliance. This was a man, Jermaine, by the name of Evan Whitfield. And he said there was a lack of anti-racism messaging, but that's linked to the Trump administration. This was him.
Is there a lack of messaging? The answer is absolutely yes, right? We're not seeing that. And that's a massive distinction from the former global tournaments, Australia, New Zealand for the women, Russia, Qatar for the men, right? Why are they doing it? I mean, that is up for debate. But I think, again, I'm sure you all are watching our political situation here with the Trump administration. And it's, again, I think quite obvious, especially with Infantino's run up to the Club World Cup, right? Being so close to Trump, being at the White House constantly, it would be shocking if they didn't have conversations about what they were messaging publicly and how that would show such a dissonance between what is going on in the United States and in comparison to the human rights and the anti-discrimination messaging that FIFA typically stands for.
I mean, off the back of this specific instance, Simon, whether there is anti-racism messaging or not, it's not going to stop a situation whereby a South American player, in the person of Gustavo Cabral, who's Argentinian, said something to Rudiger, which in his eyes, and as Jermaine has perfectly articulated, is not deemed to be racist.
But with respect to that fool that spoke the other day, who was a fool, talked about white cisgender men having
he wasn't a fool.
Well, he was. He made an argument that my view about keeping as much of agendas out of sports was about the typical response from a white cisgender male, which I don't understand what my colour's got to do with it. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, and the Trump policy about illegal immigration has got nothing to do with anti-discrimination. It's got to do with illegal immigration in his country, and he was elected on it. So it's just bloody nonsense. He has a view. But the idea, what we're talking about is, if someone has said something racist, they need to be consequenced. The player that we're talking about, if he is what he has said, there's nothing racist about what he said. He's called him a coward, right? And if Antonio Rudiger has heard it something differently, if he said something racist, he needs to be consequenced. Now, we saw an instance 2 or 3 years ago where you had, in a European game, where Demba Ba went absolutely hysterical on the touchline because a Romanian referee was asking his official which one of the coaching staff had done something wrong. And they didn't know their names, and the only person in the coaching staff that had said something was one of the black coaching staff, and he said the black guy, and he used the word negro, which is black in Romanian. So there was a debate about, Demba Ba thought he was being racist, and it wasn't racist. He was using the word that is related to the colour in the country of the language, the origin. So we have to be very careful what we tell as racism. Now, there's two kinds of approaches to it. How much racism do we see in the sport, right, which we try to remove, and how much racism do we see in the society and the terraces and the spectators, and how much can the sport be responsible for eliminating that? Zero tolerance policy on both. But as far as the ability to be able to control it, if you've got the managers, the players, the owners, the people that are playing the sport being racist, then you can clean that house much easier than you can clean society's house, because football's messaging will reach a certain point. There was racism around the world. There was racism in all communities. There's racism in the white community. There's racism in the black community. But in countries like ours, where it's 85% white, you're going to see more racism because numerically there's more numbers. But I don't know. Then that's not racist.
No.
He said it to a black man, but it doesn't make it racist.
No, it doesn't. No.
Yeah. In view of the fact, before this tournament, Jermaine, we have seen Infantino pretty much cozy up to Trump. Do you think FIFA are doing enough in this area?
In what? Dispelling racism?
Yeah.
You know what? I think one of the things I got from what we just heard from that interview around kind of their lack of messaging, when I heard that, I was thinking... So what we're saying essentially is that, you know, a spectator might be sat there in the stadium, and then all of a sudden on one of the billboards it pops up saying, we at FIFA say no to racism, and they expect that person to be sat in that seat go, oh, actually I need to check myself whilst I'm at the football, I won't be racist today. Is that what we're saying? We need to see messaging to remind people not to be racist.
Do you think the campaigns are pretty much pointless?
I felt like that as a player a lot of the time. You know, I think a lot of us did. You know, I think that there is a lot of work that goes into it, and there's no doubt about that. And
you had to go along with these anti-racism campaigns.
I went to a lot of them, and I tried to support a lot of them, and I'm not dispelling the hard work that goes in and around them at all. I was always just of the opinion of kind of, where's the fruits of your labour type thing. I don't see the huge benefits. I think players, you know, to this day are still going through things. I think the biggest impacts that we have are, you know, we highlight names. So, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking when Kevin Prince Boateng ran off the pitch those couple of times and he created a big moment around it. And then there was certain campaigns that went on online. I think anytime there's noise around a scenario, it makes people obviously think, and it makes people tighten up their behaviour. But essentially it's a societal thing. It's not really it's not a football thing, it's not just a club thing, it's not a World Cup thing, it's not a FIFA thing. It's what happens in societies and how people are raised, essentially.
I mean, it may be, and it may be what this fellow alluded to. It may well be that Trump has sat down and said, I don't want any anti-discrimination messages, right? But I don't think that's the case. But the fact of the matter is, on previous experiences, we've seen all the furore around the messaging that was required in the Euros because one country had adopted a policy that it didn't want education taught in a certain school around homosexuality, and the Germans said that they wanted to light up the Allianz Stadium with LGBT flags. We saw Wembley getting involved in the argument about Palestine and Israel. Yeah. We've seen the human rights issues in Qatar, and maybe, just maybe, football said, maybe we're just going to pare back a little bit on the messaging. Maybe it was that. Or maybe it was as sinister as that fella turned around and said it was Trump saying, I'm a dyed-in-the-wall racist and I really do want to make sure that discrimination is at the top of everyone's list.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway, we'll probably never know what, if anything, was said between Rudiger and Cabral. We'll see where that investigation goes. Having said that, we'll keep across it, and when we hear what the decision is on it, we'll bring it to you first. We're live on talkSPORT this Monday lunchtime. Going to talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin very shortly, out of Everton, but where next? In the meantime, let's head down to Wimbledon. Day one, it's hot. Here's Lisa.
It's been a great 3 months for Sonny Cartel, the British women's number 3, at a career high of 49, and the 23-year-old Brightonian is leading Jelena Ostapenko, having come from 4-1 down to win the first set 7-5. She's serving a breakdown in the second at 4-1. Elsewhere in Britwatch, wildcard Oliver Crawford's taken the first set on a tiebreak against Matteo Bellocci, and Oliver Tarver is a set and a break-up in his opening match, knowing however well he does, he will not be able to claim the large amount of his prize money, which is due to his amateur status as a current college player in the United States.
Lisa, thank you very much indeed. You were nodding away.
I know, I heard that one day that the kid can't, even if he can't get his 66 grand because he's a student.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pity. Jermaine is with us all the way through until 1 o'clock. Jermaine, it surprised me somewhat when I heard that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has announced that he's leaving Everton when his contract expires at the end of this month. He joined, seems like ages ago, he joined from Sheffield United back in 2016. 273 appearances for Everton in all competition. What do you think is on the agenda for Dominic next? Because I've met him a few times, and when I met him, I thought, there's a big move for you somewhere. I'm sure of it. Do I still think that? I'm not sure. I don't honestly know.
That's what injuries do to people. They put doubt in people's minds because he hasn't played a consistent amount of football over the last few years, really, to be able to kind of say to people like yourself or anybody, who's a fan, actually, Dominic Calvert-Lewin can be scoring double figures, year in, year out. We know he's capable of doing it, but his body's not allowing him to do it currently. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin will still have, in the back of his mind somewhere, he'll still be thinking World Cup. Definitely.
Really?
I definitely think he will. I think that, he will know that he's got a good season in him in terms of, the year he had under Ancelotti, for example. He's not had a year like that since because of injury. So all it comes down to is, can I stay fit? If I can stay fit and, I can clearly score goals, wherever that may be, whether he goes to Scotland or whether he stays in the Premier League, you'll know he can score goals. But, you're looking at the front line of England. Yeah, I definitely think in the back of his mind somewhere, he's thinking, if I go and start playing every single week, I'll have half a chance if I'm scoring goals. But I just don't see, unfortunately, when these patterns start to arrive as a footballer, they tend to continue.
Well, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. Injuries have been a problem. Last season, he scored just 3 goals in 26 league appearances. Missed over 3 months between January and May. Is he still worth a Premier League punt by some club?
I think, especially those teams that are, around the team he's already at. So it probably would be a pointless move for him unless it's a huge financial move for him. So if Sunderland coming into the league went, look, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we're going to double your wages to keep us in the league, then of course it'd be he would go and do that, and I think it'd be hugely beneficial to a Sunderland. But it'd probably be, you're already at Everton for so long. I don't see him improving on that particular team if I'm in terms of where they are in the league. No,
right. It's down to him. I mean, you've always had your take on Dominic.
I just don't want to see him on the front cover of magazines carrying a handbag.
Well, yes, he was always one for the odd fashion shoot.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that I think there's times when you would argue against what Simon's saying there, but I think in this case you need to start you need to deliver. You need to be delivering on a weekly basis before you start going down that road. In my opinion, I think.
Just my point.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to disagree with what he's saying. It's hard to disagree with what he's saying because that's very much what my era was like. It was like, it's fine, go and do your interviews and your magazines and this, that and the other, but you better deliver on a Saturday. Yeah. And
if he was a teammate of yours, would you have pulled him?
I think we would. Yeah, I think the dressing rooms I was in, you got pulled. I mean, I used to get pulled for doing a shoot magazine, or match magazine with my football kit on, talking about the team. But it's a different era. But essentially, yeah, I think that looking at where Everton have been over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I think that the focus needed to be fully on the football. Don't get me wrong. Some people say you can do both. I just think you better be delivering if you're going to be doing the stuff off the pitch.
It's going to be hard for him, however he looks at it. Because at one stage it was always thought that he was the next big thing. He would get, if he wasn't going to stay at Everton, one big one was going to come in for him. And I think at the back of his mind now, you had injury issues as well, Jermaine.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is, which is why I said about the patterns, are, I started to pick up injuries when I played under a manager that started to make me, started to put me in the team and then take me out of the team. So when Harry Redknapp arrived at Spurs, I went from playing week in, week out to playing, some big games and not playing. I wasn't playing week in, week out. I was just kind of in and out of the side. In doing so, your body just softens a little bit, and this is where when we go to this conversation about players overplaying or whatever that may be, your body becomes conditioned in pain. Every game you go into, you're just in bits, but then your body just gets through it. What Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been going through is play 5 games, gets injured, misses 2 weeks, then comes back, tries to catch up, and his body's just not been able to have that conditioning to be under the stress and strain that it needs to be. Mind? Yeah, of course. You've seen it with players, loads of players over the years. It's not so much the commitment of going into a tackle, it's the anxiety before the game. So your anxiety before the game is more like you don't want the embarrassment of having to get injured again in front of all your home fans when, all you're doing is working your socks off to try and get back onto the pitch.
Right.
But then, most of the game you're spending thinking, please hamstring don't go, please calf don't go, please quad don't go. Any of the issues that you've had that usually
That's
cause
an
you a
interesting
problem.
word you used there, embarrassment.
Yeah,
Have you been in that position?
Definitely, yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
God. I'm going to get hooked again.
No, it's not so much the hook in it. It's the embarrassment of letting down the manager and letting down the fans. You feel a responsibility, and when your body just keeps breaking down on you, you do have a level of like anxiety that kicks in before the game.
Yeah,
that makes you you're just sat there hoping and praying your body's going to stay together, and that's probably where his head's at the minute.
Remember, you always tell me Manchester United, iconic brand out there on their own. Maybe that is still the same as it once was. Maybe it's not. Liverpool chairman Tom Werner, who I've met on a few occasions, mostly at Wembley, interviewed him a couple of times. We're very aware of the global power of Liverpool. The club's reach around the world is by far the strongest in the Premier League. He goes on to say, we think there could be now as many as 1 billion people around the world who follow Liverpool. 1 billion. There's only 8 billion on the planet.
Yeah,
1 in 8 follow Liverpool.
We heard Man United say that a few years ago, didn't we? I mean, ultimately, Liverpool are one of those iconic legacy football clubs. There's a reasons why, you know, when the Premier League started, Liverpool's turnover was 40 million, Man United was 40 million. 5 years later, Man United was 100. Liverpool have to operate at their highest level to do things that Man United can do when they're not at their highest level. Of course, they've got more global impressions right now. They're winning the bleeding Premier League, and Man United's stinking the place out. What do you expect? Man United get anything vaguely resembling where they once were before, they'll be back again dominating that space. But Liverpool are a huge football club around the world.
Which is the biggest club, Jermaine? Manchester United or Liverpool?
I'd probably say United would be the bigger club, but they're a bigger club. I mean, it's eras, isn't it? Essentially, you know, you kind of go back to what, like the 70s when Liverpool were winning all those European Cups, and there's only a certain amount of things you can watch on telly with regards to football. So that generates a huge influx of Liverpool fans. And United, you know, obviously had early success in Europe as well. But for my era as a kid, United won absolutely everything. You know, that team in the 90s, the class of 92,
right.
They won absolutely everything. And then that generates another wave of global dominance. And Liverpool are now going back into it. So look, it's close, but I just think in the eras you grow up in, you pick what you visually see as the bigger club. And for my era, Manchester United were the bigger club over Liverpool.
Very aware of the global power of Liverpool.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it, how the language around football has changed from we have 500 million impressions watching us when it was about trophies, wasn't it, once?
Yeah, true.
Is that from the footballers?
No, it's from the chairman.
That's from Werner.
Yeah.
1 billion people around the world follow Liverpool. All right, 1 billion.
1 in 7.
It's getting close to our audience. We're coming up to 12:30.
Devastating news for Wales scrum half Thomas Williams. He's been ruled out of the Lions tour due to a hamstring injury. Head coach Andy Farrell says it's a big blow.
He's got some sad news this morning. He'll be leaving camp.
Former Lion Will Greenwood told us this could be a sadly defining moment in Williams' career.
Unless he comes back in 2029, for the rest of his life, we'll have a mixed relationship with the British and Irish Lions.
Now, from the Lions in Australia to the Lionesses in Switzerland, their Euro title defence kicks off this week. They beat Jamaica 7-0 in a friendly last night. There was a return for Lauren James after her injury, but Sarina Wiegman is staying coy about her starting lineup.
So this is the first time that she could get minutes, and yeah, then we hope next week we can keep building her, and then going into France. And we also know that there's a lot of competition going on up front, but also in midfield.
Are you getting into the Club World Cup yet? Our reporter Ben Jacobs has told us potential semi-finals between Chelsea, Man City, PSG and Real Madrid could build excitement. But he also pointed out,
if it all comes back to UEFA again, UEFA, the big powerhouse in all of this, may say, well, why are we playing all of these games just to again have 4 UEFA teams in the semi-finals, however entertaining that is.
And Wimbledon is underway out in the sun, so head to talksport.com for plenty of exclusives to read while you eat your strawberries and cream.
Another chance for you to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester, July the 19th. Yeah, the concerts are sold out. We can get you in. Alongside the tickets, we'll put you up for a night in a top hotel. Put $5,000 in your back pocket. Completely tax-free. Listen up right now for everything you need to know.
On iArcade, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July.
This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Sorted. We've been sorted with Jermaine Jenas in our midst this Monday lunchtime, and delighted to be so. Keith Andrews is in Brentford's midst. He has been, of course, as set-piece coach since July 2024. But now he's got the main gig, now that Thomas Frank has gone to Tottenham. He was appointed Brentford's new manager, and that was officially confirmed on Friday, a 3-year deal. And he's got the job. I was texting Keith over the weekend. I knew him from my time at Sky. Do you know him, Jermaine? Good lad, Keith Andrews.
Only from playing against him.
Yeah.
A couple of times. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was fun for me. But no, he was one of those really quite annoying players, if I'm honest. He was always like niggling away and always giving his all. But he was. It's interesting, this whole dynamic. I mean, has he managed I'm trying to look back and think, has he actually managed? Yeah, I don't think he's managed.
Well, it's a good point. He's been within coaching setups.
Correct, yeah.
More notably, the Republic of Ireland, now Brentford. And that was a point that Martin O'Neill jumped on the other day, because Keith speaks his mind, and in my view is quite right to, and maybe Martin bit back a bit on that. Do players care about a manager's CV as much as the media and pundits do? I mean, will the Brentford players be thinking, well, hang on, set piece coach 1 minute, he gets the main job the next? Before you answer that, Keith has been talking to the club channel about getting the job itself.
Honoured that I'm the person that's been chosen to take the club into the next chapter. Very appreciative of the owner, the board, the staff that have supported this decision. It's an opportunity I feel I'm very capable of doing. I'm ready to do, but equally I realise it's not the done thing in normal football clubs, but I don't think we're a normal football club. I started coaching when I was 29 because I knew I wanted to be a head coach, and I started my B licence then. I was coaching Blackburn Rovers on the 14s at the age of 29, academies until I finished playing at 34. I got promoted 10 years ago as a coach. So this has been a long time in the making, with lots of different experiences, different age profiles of coaching young players, under 21s, senior players, international football, League One, Championship, Premier League. So it's an amalgamation of all those things, I think, is the reason I'm sat here today.
So Keith gets the job, Jermaine.
Yeah.
The Brentford players know him, but would a lack of a managerial CV bother a dressing room necessarily?
I don't think it's the lack of a managerial CV that comes to my mind first. I think it's more the kind of the internal promotion. The issue with the internal promotion from coach to manager is the relationship you have as a player with the coaches is very different to the one you're going to have with the manager. So Keith would have been in and around the dressing rooms, whether it's kind of showing people set pieces or whether it's just walking out onto the pitch and talking to these groups of players like friends, because that's what coaches and their relationships with players are. And now he's going to have to change because he's a manager, whether he likes it or not. I think that is the first thing that kind of comes into my mind, because I've seen that happen with coaches. We had it very much with kind of Steve McLaren when we was with England, and he was coach, he was on the pitch, he was coaching, and then when he went to the manager place and he was talking to you from a manager's point of view, it didn't land. It wasn't the same energy that you would get from somebody else. So that's going to be one of Keith's battles, the battle of, yes, he needs to change, but if that shift is too drastic, the players are not going to have it. They will see straight through it. So he has to be very careful about how he goes about, maintaining those relationships, but also maintaining the fact that he's the manager and the respect levels need to be through the roof.
That's interesting. Is that tricky in any way from Matthew Benham's point of view at Brentford?
Well, he's already got a case in point because he did it with Thomas Frank, didn't he? So it's already been established. It's an established blueprint. It's not insurmountable. Keith, there's nothing in Keith Andrews' resume that dictates this appointment, because every area he's gone, the team's either got relegated or underachieved, and with the exception of Brentford last season. He's been at MK Dons with Carl Robinson, they got relegated. He went to Sheffield United with Chris Wilder, they got relegated. He was assistant manager with the Republic of Ireland with Stephen Kenny. That was an unprecedented disaster, wasn't it? No one was happy with the outcomes of the Republic of Ireland side under Stephen Kenny. So there's only this particular moment in time that seems to have crystallised in something that looks successful. He must be an impressive individual, because otherwise, if it was not, as we said 3 times last week, if it was not Brentford or Brighton that were making this appointment, you would scratch your head and go, But because of the orthodoxy and the thinking and the success of Benham and Tony Bloom in creating these rather unfashionable clubs into very well-established Premier League clubs, as much as anybody's established in the Premier League besides the Big Six, you have to say they don't leave many stones unturned, do they? So the fact that Keith Andrews has been given this opportunity is not about economics. I don't suppose it's about the money. They've got a load of dough out of Tottenham for Thomas Frank being gone over there.
Yeah.
So they could have gone and got someone else, and there's plenty of candidates out there. They have chosen this pathway based upon a pathway that's been well trodden before, with Mark Warburton, Dean Smith, Thomas Frank, and now Keith Andrews. So they think they've got method in their madness. Now, I don't see anything from him that tells me he's a leader in that interview. We will see. But I guarantee you, if you sat there 7 years ago, listened to Thomas Frank, you might have felt the same thing. Strange looking little fellow. What's he all about?
Yeah.
And the reality is no one thinks that now. So it is a risk, but because it's Benham and his thinking, you go, well, given the nature of his business, the way that he operates, what he's done with his football club, he will have not put risk on the table if he doesn't think that risk has a reward attached to it.
The only kind of like anomaly within all of that is what all of those managers you mentioned prior would have been promoted from within, but was in the Championship.
True, and that's a big factor.
It
You're
is a big
right,
factor, yeah.
because now they're playing with Matthew is playing with 300 million quid.
Yeah,
because that's what he'll lose if they get relegated in the first season.
Yeah, so
and what we'll see is the belief system. If he doesn't start brightly, and all of a sudden, you're 7, 8, 9, 10 games in the season, and you've got 2 points, and you're rooted in the bottom 3, we'll see them.
Correct. Yeah, sure. I wish him well. I do wish him well, and we'll watch for it. Interestingly, Thomas Frank has gone to Tottenham. Makes me think of you. You know the club.
Yeah.
You know the scale of the support. You know the expectation now. They've won a trophy.
Yeah.
What's Thomas Frank getting involved in?
What, as a club? Well, I think, it's a dream for Thomas Frank. He's joining a much bigger football club than the one he was at before. He's got a top group of footballers still, in my opinion, although they didn't perform to what their abilities are last year. I do believe there's still a decent squad there that, if added to, would go a long way.
Were they right to sack Ange?
I don't know if it was a right or wrong type. Look, I went to a lot of the games last year, and it was really disappointing what I watched on a week-to-week basis. I think they nicked a cup, essentially, is what Ange did. And there were huge things I did like about Ange. He reminded me of a certain era of football. I think that's why I kind of gravitated towards him. There was something about him that reminded me of a Premier League era that I loved. But there's no doubt that on a week-to-week basis, the football I was watching, tactically at times it was beyond Paul, and I think they got themselves into some really terrible situations. So I wasn't that fussed, I suppose, is what I'm saying. When he was sacked, I was like, you know what, fair play, you've got a trophy, you're going to be an absolute Spurs legend forever. I feel for you, but to be fair, you're lucky you didn't get relegated at the same time. So let's see what Thomas Frank brings to the table, was my mindset. And I think that is now, from a Spurs perspective, is he the most overwhelming signing? No, I wouldn't say he is. Does he bring stability in a style of play? Yeah, I think he will do. And then I think the interesting factor, which we've not been able to see yet, is what's he going to be able to attract as a manager? Because essentially at Brentford, they run like a Moneyball system.
A little bit, yeah.
Very stat-based system. So he hasn't really had to operate in a world where we're in the Champions League, I'm an attractive proposition as Thomas Frank, I play this style of football and I can get this brilliance out of you. He hasn't had to operate in that world. It's all just been numbers-based. Whereas now, it's going to be interesting to see who he can attract. Because that's part of being a manager as well.
Point.
Who can I bring to this football club? So, we're probably going to see very soon with the Eze situation. I think the Mbeumo one looks like it's not going to go his way.
Sure.
Eze's the next name. Let's see if he passes that test, and we'll see.
If you're Thomas Frank, we should be okay. I've got to improve on 17th, so it should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, it can do that. But still got a trophy.
Before we go today, and Newcastle fans pushing me to do it, and of course we'll do it. Not just for you, but for everybody listening. Jermaine played at Newcastle, a very, very popular football club in the Premier League, an established club. We'll finish with that before we go at 1. Stay with us. 1 at Wimbledon. Let's head to Lisa O'Sullivan before we go any further at this stage. Is it warm, Lisa? How is it?
It's absolutely glorious in my beautifully air-conditioned centre court commentary position, but it is definitely toasty McToasty out on centre court, where it is beginning to fill up because Carlos Alcaraz will be getting the show underway against Fabio Fognini of Italy in just over an hour's time. And there are some people taking their seats. I think they might disappear and get some drinks before the action starts properly. We've got 14 Brits in action today as well, and 4 on court at the moment, 2 of interest. Sonny Cartel, we're getting the full Yelena Ostapenko experience, I must point out at this stage. It is now 3-love in the third set in Sonny Cartel's favour. Ostapenko taking that second set 6-2, but not happy in the third at the moment. And Oliver Tarvit, who could be in for a great result. 6-4, 6-4, he leads Leandro Riedi of Switzerland. And if he wins, normally he would win £99,000 for making the second round. But because of his amateur status as a student in the States, he will take home only 10 over the year.
Oh dear, that's a bit harsh, is it not? 31 degrees it's going to be there by mid-afternoon. We shall see how the players cope with that. Lisa, thank you very much indeed. Jermaine Jenas has been with us for the last 2 3/4 hours. Can hardly believe it, mate. It's flown, has it not?
Enjoyed it.
2 of your former clubs, Jermaine, both trophy winners last season. Tottenham and Newcastle. But who do you think has got the bigger potential to go to the next level?
Currently Newcastle. I think there's the stability they have. The only thing with Newcastle is just the financials around what they are capable of doing, but what they actually can do is something that, you know, could hold them back in terms of the players that they need to keep hold of. So there's, you know, people like Isak are constantly being courted, Guimaraes being courted. You can imagine that people like Livramento in the next couple of years, they've got such a great stable of players there right now. Yeah. I think to get to that next level, to start challenging for like a league title, something needs to change within the, you know, financial fair play ruling to allow them to do that. I think they can get close, but I don't think they're going to be able to challenge kind of like Liverpool and Manchester City in the way that they go about things. So. But right now, there's no doubt that Newcastle are closer. You've got a big soft spot for Newcastle. You played for them, of course, and you immediately fall in love, or the fans fall in love with you as a result. They're worried that Alexander Isak might be on the move. Are you? No, I'm not actually. I do honestly believe that, you know, for Newcastle's best players to leave, they've literally got to be stuck in a corner, Newcastle as a football club. There must be no way out from a financial fair play position. It's not going to be because they can't give Alexander Isak the wages that he wants, and it's not because he's not, you know, playing in the biggest competitions and so on and so forth. There's no doubt that City's not an option for starters. Arsenal and Liverpool are an option, but you know, I don't see that. You know, the Arsenal jump, I don't see it as a massive jump forward personally from Newcastle currently. I think those two teams go head to head all year round.
You wouldn't see Arsenal as a big step forward for
as a football club. Yes, it's a bigger football club than Newcastle, but in terms of the teams that they both have got currently, I think that, you know, for him to leave Newcastle, if I was Alexander Isak, this phone call needs to come in from Real Madrid, or it needs to come in from Barcelona, or, you know, potentially Liverpool, you know, currently right now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any others really that would tempt me that much to leave Newcastle.
I mean, on the Tottenham front the other day, we heard Simon, we heard Daniel Levy say it. We want to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League.
You need to start spending some money then.
Well, there's your answer.
That's facts.
Don't look at what he says. Look at what he does. I mean, if he says these things, Daniel, I mean, of course he wants to win the Premier League.
Yeah,
but you know, it's easy saying it. It's another thing doing it. If you want to win the Premier League, you're going to have to spend a prerequisite amount of money to do it. And whilst Tottenham have spent money, we know they've spent money. Even though they've significant money over the last 2-3 seasons, 500 million net. The wages are a challenge because Daniel runs the wage basis on about a 45% ratio to turnover, which is remarkable. And some would say he's not remarkable and is reflective of the reason why the team doesn't win, and he's the problem. Perhaps there is some truth behind that and some value in some of those observations. But if you're going to make these sort of statements, the question is asked, do you want to win the Premier League? I asked him a year ago when this TV show that would come out soon, do you want to win things? Do you want to put things in that trophy? Yeah, of course I do. You know, because some people would turn around and say, what would you rather have, Daniel? You know, 50 million quid in Premier League, Champions League places, or win the Premier League. And he was always of the mindset that I want to win the Premier League. But he's not. What he's not going to do, and he's been there for 25 years. He's not going to change, is he? He's not going to put Tottenham in hock to do it.
No.
Not going to do it.
He's not going to spend £100 million on one player. He's not going to. When Arsenal went and bought Declan Rice, he's not going to do that.
Yeah,
he's not going to look at the club right now and go, right, this is a team that has won something. We have got a good group of players. What do we actually need? I mean, it's crying out for an enforcer type midfield player. Somebody who just kind of is a bit more robust and is a bit better on the in the defensive side of things. Are we going to go and spend a fortune doing that? They don't. You don't tend to just make the right move at the right time unless it's about selling a player. If I'm honest with you.
And as you said earlier, maybe the right move for Alexander Isak is to stay where he is and have a huge season with Newcastle United, which is a very special club. Why did you leave? What was the circumstances around which you left?
I felt the club was in decline, if I'm totally honest with you. I think that the sacking of Bobby Robson rocked me a little bit as a player. It was Bobby that brought me to the football club. And then when Graham Souness came in, although Graham, from a managerial point of view, in terms of me communicating with him, it was one of the best managers I had to be able to just have a normal conversation with. From I would say probably tactical point of view and from a learning point of view of what I thought I was going to get from one of the best midfield players of a generation, I didn't quite get, and then I was being messed around a little bit from a contractual point of view. And then the biggest thing was we played against Spurs in a quarter-final of the FA Cup and we beat them 1-0. Kluivert scored, and I just remember in that game looking at Spurs and thinking, this team's coming. And that's when Daniel had just arrived around that kind of, I think it was around about 2004-05 season, and he'd just got there, I think 2003 or 2002, around that time. And Pedro Mendes was there, Sean Davis was there, Jermaine Defoe, Michael Carrick, they had Freddie Canute. And I looked at them and I just thought, that's the team that's going to be challenging for the Champions League. And we used to be that at Newcastle. And whether it was an ownership situation, and when Newcastle's owners came in, he bought Michael Owen when I left, so they were still trying to buy, but I just could feel my own personal situation going one way and the club going another way, and I was desperate to go to the World Cup that year, and I just thought my best chances of going to a World Cup were to get to Spurs.
Yeah. Souness, I think at the time, was saying you weren't enjoying life at Newcastle.
Yeah, he lied. He did. I don't know why he said it or why he came out with the statement of me saying it's a goldfish bowl, because that wasn't the truth. I loved my time in Newcastle. As an 18-year-old playing for Newcastle United in the Champions League, I was living the dream. It was the best place for me to be at that particular time, and the people up there were incredible. Playing for that group of fans was, a dream come true. So it had nothing to do with that. I loved my time at Newcastle, and that was just something I think they used just to soften the blow of a young England international leaving the football club at that particular time.
Why do you think he would lie about it?
I don't know, but I've already said if somebody, I've just said, but if I always said if anybody can find that direct quote out of my mouth, I'm happy to donate a lot of money to charity for it, because I know it didn't happen.
Yeah. You ever speak to Souness about it?
Not really. No, I think that I've bumped into Graham on numerous occasions since, and it's water under the bridge. Really, managers have got their own agendas and players have got their own agendas.
Yeah,
we had a chat around the time I was leaving Newcastle, and we decided at that point that it was just best to go our separate ways.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was it.
Of course, Jermaine's a football man, unlike you and I. Graham wouldn't speak; he wouldn't share football stories with him and me. Well, we didn't play the game, Jermaine.
Oh wow, no.
Not at all.
Honestly, he's a good guy, Graham.
Yeah,
top guy. It's just sometimes we just there can be certain clashes that go on in relationships, and that was a minor one, a very minor one.
Yeah, of course. I shall see you tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, amongst many other things, former Rangers owner David Murray will be joining us tomorrow morning as well. Jermaine Jenas, top stuff.
Thank you.
Thanking you for being with us today.
Pleasure.
As we bowl up to 1 o'clock this hot and sweaty lunchtime.